everybody. I think we can start with the meeting. Thank you all for coming and welcome to Rome. Sorry for the little delay with which we start off, but you never know. Some things always happen in the last minute, but I'm sure it's not a big deal. So thank you very much again. My name is Matteo Angioli. I'm political advisor to Senator Giulio Terzi, who is the president of the European Affairs Committee of the Italian Senate, and regrettably he won't be able to join us now. He will be with us later in 1 hour and a half or so, because he has been called to a presentation of a report on corruption by the Minister of the European Union Affairs, Raffaele Fitto. He's going to present this critical report in the seat in the government building at Palazzo Chigi. He will be with us later. Having said that, I'm very happy to welcome all of you on his behalf, and of course I'm very happy to have here by my side Gianni Vernetti, former senator of the Italian Republic, former Under Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, and one of the promoters of this meeting, which has been in the pipeline for a few weeks now, and I think it's very, very important that we are all here to talk about Russia and about the future of this region. I'm also very happy to welcome Oleg Magaletsky, the coordinator of the forum, PostRussia Forum, who is been very, very active to call this meeting. So with no further ado, I think I can give the floor to Gianni Vernetti for his introductory remarks. Gianni, the floor is yours.
Hello, first of all, you can hear me? First of all, good afternoon to everyone, to the distinguished organizer of the 9 Free Nation of PostRussia Forum. And we are very honored and very happy to have this event today in Rome. And I would like to thank again my friends and colleague, Senator Giulio Terzi, that he will join us shortly, for supporting this initiative and for giving us the opportunity to host this event within the Senate of the Republic. I think this is an important step, because really I think that I attended the forum in London and in Paris, and attended online before again in Tokyo. I think a very important step that needs to be undertaken now is to improve the diplomatic outreach. So we need really to reach more and more government officials, European Union countries, to discuss with them the potential outcome of a different Russia, a different possible story. I think that the title that you choose, After the Empire, New Independent States Without Militaries, Colonies, and Misanthropic Ideologies, is appropriate. And I think that the future fall of the Russian Empire will lead to several new opportunities, but also several challenges that are still there, that are still on the table. When we are discussing in the next 2-3 days, there will be a very important European Union Council on the 14th and 15th December, where we really hope that a clear signal will be given for continuing a crucial support to the liberation fight of Ukraine. I think really this is a crucial step. We cannot miss these steps, because if we fail in properly supporting in politically and militarily and financially Ukraine, the risk for the entire continent, for our freedom and for our democracy is extremely high. You know that still there is a debate in European Union, in the United States. You know that we have a Prime Minister of Hungary that is trying to block Viktor Orban, to block the new funding to the Ukraine. It even is trying to block the accession, the opening of a formal negotiation for the accession of Ukraine to the European Union. There will be a huge step forward, an opening of clearly opening of negotiation with Ukraine. Also in the American democracy, in our best alliance, still there is a component of the Congress that don't want to continue this clear and strong support of Ukraine. So this is one of the main challenges, I think. I think that in Eurasia, so we have a lot of challenges. We have a rise in autocracies. We have China, we have Iran, we have Russia, but today really the legitimate fight for freedom and of Ukraine, I think, is the most important of our challenges. So we can make a long list of challenges, but this will be very fundamental for understanding what would be the future of our continent, what will be the future of Europe, the future of Russia, the Russian region, the Russian space, we can say, what will be the future of Eurasia. I think that we need to be more creative. We need to be probably a little less realistic. We need to be more innovative in our foreign policies. So I think this forum could give an important contribution, an information contribution, ideas and policies. So the potential collapse of the Russian Federation is something that we have to take in serious consideration. So we don't need too much realistic foreign policies. We need imagination, creativity. We have to support the fight. We have to support the right of the oppressed nation of Russia, and that in the last 70 years were really they struggle against a terrible empire that was completely denying any minimal right of freedom, any minimal civil and liberty rights. We need to upgrade the current politics debate in foreign circle, in diplomatic and intelligence community. There is often prevailed the doctrine of the non-dissolution of the Russian Federation. This is something that when we discuss in diplomatic circles, when we discuss with the foreign official, they said, okay, we need a democratization of Russia, not the dissolution of Russia. But I think that the democratization of Russia and the post-Russia, the potential dissolution of Russia, are two faces of the same medals. If Russia will be really a democratic country, I think, so with a really check and balance, with separation of power, with an independent judiciary, so a really and full democratic country, it's impossible to avoid that certain, today region, also called autonomous republic, could choose another way, could choose another path, a path of independence, a path of freedom. So I think we have to correct this mistake that sometimes we address in diplomatic cycle, no? To put in opposition the democratization of Russia from one side and the birth of new independent country on the ashes of this empire. So I think these are two faces really of the same medal. Frankly speaking, we in the 60s and in the 70s, we were talking about the 70s with our friend Yanis, that with his book, I think he gave a great contribution to opening this debate in Europe, in America, and worldwide. So in the 60s, in the 70s, we witnessed the decolonization of the empire of the last century. Africa was decolonized, most of Asian countries, most of Latin American. So the largest empire, you can call the British, the French, the Spanish, also Italy is a small empire, by the way. But they were under a very strong, and in any case, disruptive process of decolonization. The only space in the world, the only geopolitical space that has never been decolonized is the Russian Empire. This is the only space. If you see the last 78 years of our history. So, and Russian Federation, the so-called Russian Federation, the Russian Empire is really a mosaic, and you represent the diversity, the very extreme diversity of culture, religions, identities, languages. stories, oppressed nation that they suffered under Stalin and under the different phases of this regime, and they continue to suffer today and continue to pay a very high price. I really believe that new democratic nation, from the Russian Far East to the European parts of Russia, could give a contribution for democracy and stability for our continent. So also we have to change the narrative. Sometimes they say the risk of the collapse of Russian Federation could lead to new disaster, to new geopolitical instability. It's not true. It's true the opposite. The Russian Empire could lead to instability and to new disaster in all the European political space. It's exactly the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. So Europe, usually the Asian democracy, need to be prepared for the potential dissolution of today Russia and to the birth of a new countries. So I think we need to call the European Union and all the member states to begin to interact with the representative of the future nation. And we have today a good representation to begin to establish relation, to open negotiation, to understand the story, to understand the exception, the originality, the unique story of Circassia, of Chechnya, of Buryatia, of Tuval, Kalmykia. It's complex story. It's part of the history of our continent and is a neglected history. It's an histories that the Russian Empire wanted to erase from the history books, wanted to erase from the geographical maps. Thanks again. I hope we will have a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianni Vernetti, former Senator and former Undersecretary of State for Foreign Affairs, for your introductory remarks. The issue is interesting indeed, and the future is very interesting indeed as well. So I would like to ask Oleg now to take the floor for a few words, a few introductory remarks on your part, so that we can then start and kick off with the list of speakers. Thank you, Oleg.
Hi. At first, I want to say thank you for Gianni, for Matteo, for the office of the Senator Terzi to organize this great meeting in Italy, in this great city where a big empire was born and it was collapsed for some times. We understand that everything changing, and you can't just think about that everything tomorrow will be like the same like it was in the past. So thank you for everyone that come here. We have 3 sessions when we will discuss the future of post-Russian spaces, of the free Eurasia, of free Europe, how to make it, how to make this process of decolonizing of the last empire in Europe most controlled and non-violence, how to make the future with the new frontier, but not buffers. So thank you, and I have a honor to introduce and to make a speech of the Prime Minister of Chechen Republic, Ahmed Zakayev, who will be open the session A about the challenge and opportunities, maximizing local, region and global benefits, win-win scenario of decolonization of so-called Russian Federation for all the parties. Please, dear Ahmed, we are welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, one moment, I forgot to say it. We have probably 10-15 minutes to speak each other, and we have a few minutes to questions. So if somebody have question for our speakers, please hold your hand and we'll give you opportunity to ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this very important event. And before I start, my main speech, which I prepared to this very important issue, I would like to say a few words about 11 December. What is the day? And I will speak in Russia. 11 декабря сегодня исполнилось 29 лет с начала Первой русско-чеченской войны. И в результате этой войны погибло более 300 тысяч только гражданского населения с чеченской стороны. Из них больше 40 тысяч это дети. Также для того, чтобы развязать войну в Чечне, и первую, и вторую, на территории России были российскими спецслужбами, это уже доказанный факт, организованные теракты. Это взрывы домов в Волгодонске, Буйнакске, в Москве, это Беслан, это Норд-Ост. И я прошу всех участвующих здесь почтить память всех жертв этой войны минутой молчания. Спасибо большое, садитесь.
Sorry, Ahmed, we'll make translation of your speech if you will speak in Russia, yeah?
Yeah, I will make my speech in English.
English, okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's okay? Yeah, I'm sorry. About what's happened in 29 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be with you and make my speech. The uncertainty of the future often evokes concern and fear. However, it is essential to realize that while predicting the future may be challenging, we have the power to share it and must strive to do so. Fear of the unknown should not paralyze us or mislead us into thinking that everything will automatically return to the previous order. Upholding the status quo and resisting change is a path to catastrophe. During moments of profound change, what is needed is not self-comfort and escape from reality, but composure, strategic vision, and proactive actions. For many years, the propaganda of the Russian Empire, reinforced by the efforts of so-called influence agents, financed by the Kremlin, has influenced the opinions of many in the political, diplomatic, and academic circles of NATO and European Union countries. The myth they created about the united and indivisible Russia have penetrated the conscience of a significant part of the elites. However, it is necessary to expose Kremlin propaganda, which by repeating thousands of times denies the rights of peoples to self-determination and independence, the right for which Poles, Finns, Lithuanians, Ukrainians, Georgians, Latvians, Azerbaijans, Kazakhs, Chechens, and other people fought. It is our responsibility to recognize and resist attempts to distort history and undermine the foundations of national sovereignty. The world is currently experiencing an era of monumental historical change that truly have the potential to irreversibly alter the course of our civilization. In these turbulent times, everyone from ordinary citizens to the highest echelons of power, from deputies to ministries, from heads of state to entire nations, face a choice that will determine the future of our world. This choice is not easy and concerns fundamental values. Do you choose good over evil, justice over injustice, order over chaos? We are currently in a conflict that can be considered the Third World War, a war of ideas and principles, a war for those suppressed by the current Kremlin policy and who see in Ukraine a symbol of the possibility of their own freedom and independence. Ukraine's heroism in resisting aggression is the crystallization of a broader struggle for the rights of national self-determination and human dignity. It is not just an act of courage. It is a beacon for all those aspiring to freedom and democracy, a challenge that requires our decisive response.
At this crucial moment in history, our support for Ukraine becomes not only a moral duty as a sign of gratitude for its resilience, but also a strategic investment in the future of region where the rights of people and basic freedoms are respected and protected. We all must become active participants in this struggle, supporting Ukraine, not only with words, but with concrete actions throughout military aid, political pressure on aggressors, economic support, and international solidarity. By investing in Ukraine's success, we contribute to shaping a new world where every nation can freely choose its path and build a society based on its own values and aspirations. At this decisive moment, it is also crucial to support those who have for centuries defending their right to self-determination. I am referring to the peoples of the North Caucasus. Our peoples who have endured many trials continue their struggle for independence, freedom, and a future where we can live in peace and prosperity. Our fight is struggle for the ideals for which the best sons and daughters of nations give their lives, and their courage and sacrifices deserve our unconditional respect and support. A few weeks ago, an event of profound historical significance took place. Representatives of the North Caucasus peoples gathered in the European Parliament for the Third Congress, which marked a milestone in our shared history. During this Congress, the Committee for the Independence of the North Caucasus was established, demonstrating the determination and desire of the Caucasian peoples for self-determination and sovereignty. The historical significance on this moment is hard to overstate, considering that the previous Congress was held more than a century ago in Vladikavkaz. Thus, the Congress laid the foundation for the revival and strengthening of the state ambitions of the Union of the Peoples of the North Caucasus, which celebrated its 105 years this year. The Committee for Independence faces a responsible and multifaceted task to bring together all constructive and progressive forces of the region for a coordinated struggle for independence, taking real and effective actions to occupy the North Caucasus. As part of this process, I was honored to take on the role of the leader of the military council. My mission is not only to form the army of the Union of the Peoples of the North Caucasus on the territory of Ukraine, but also to ensure its effective training and coordination to defend the rights and freedoms for our peoples. We are entering a new era where our collective voice and determination become decisive in the quest for long-awaited independence and peace in the Caucasus. The political process of unification in the Caucasus not only inherits, but also revives traditions of solidarity and unity as demonstrated by armed units currently fighting side by side on the front lines in Ukraine. These units, composed of brave fighters from the Caucasus, embody the spirit of brotherhood and determination that is the guarantee of the internal strength and cohesion. This unification has already entered a new stage of development, paving the way for important future achievements. We are the epicenter of events that will soon allow us to witness the realization of these efforts in the form of concrete and significant results. The people of the Caucasus possess a rich historical heritage of unity and solidarity, repeatedly confirmed in moments of crisis and trials. The current unification of comrades in arms on the front of Ukraine is a continuation of this proud tradition that laid the foundation for the formation of our modern armed forces. It is not just military, but also moral unity, the will and determination of our warriors, the predetermine the creation of powerful, disciplined, and unwavering army capable for defending the interests and security of all the peoples of the North Caucasus. We clearly see how brotherhood in battle shapes on the contours of the future of our region. The camaraderie forged in the fires of battles must serve as a solid foundation for our collective aspiration towards a peaceful, free, and prosperous life in the Caucasus. May our shared history, common trails, and shared hopes strengthening this foundation and inspire us to new achievements for the well-being of all our peoples. And now, today, I call on each of us to unite our efforts, courage, and hope. Let us make our common task a vital mission to ensure the Ukraine's victory in this grand battle of ideas becomes a milestone on the path of the world built on unshakable pillars of justice, mutual respect, and humanity. May every individual, every nation contribute its unique spark to the flame of the common good, thereby igniting beacons of hope for all generations that follow us. May our solidarity become a fortress in the face of trials, and may our singular and unwavering goal be a clearer than ever a peaceful and prosperous future for Ukraine, the Caucasus, and the entire world. Together we can, and together we will build this world where every voice will be heard, every dream has a chance to come true, and every prayer for peace will not go unanswered. Let us unite our hearts and actions in this noble pursuit forward to victory which our people so ardently seek and which is more deserved than ever. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Ahmed. Probably some have question for Ahmed Zakayev, friends. Yeah. If you have, please welcome. Thank you. Okay, probably you have opportunity to speak with Ahmed in a public way.
Thank you. I just want to say one word regarding Mr. Ahmed Zakayev. I'm very delighted to meet him after a few years. I would like just to recall that over 20 years ago, we were in touch through a man whose association now is called the Global Committee for the Rule of Law, and it's been named after him, Marco Pannella. And he was at the time a member of the European Parliament alongside Olivier Dupuy, who was a very active member of Parliament, of the European Parliament, and involved in Chechnya and in the promotion of democracy in your country. So it's a real pleasure to be here, and it's at the time was an initiative run by the Transnational Radical Party, and today with Senator Giulio Terzi, it's good that that our paths cross, because it means that the goal of democracy and the rule of law is still our beacon. So thank you. It's very important to meet again. Thank you. Oleg, please.
Okay, thank you, friends. We could continue. Before the next speaker, I want to say that we in Rome, we have two parts of our event. Today is in Senate of Italy. We have the day of public speech with 3 sessions, and tomorrow we also have the meetings in Committee of Foreign Affairs of Parliament of Italy in the morning. So you're welcome, people who know who is the list to take a part in this meeting. And I have the honor to introduce our next speaker is Rajana Dugar-De Ponte. She's a member of Committee for Buryat Independence and the Free Nation League. Rajana, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rajana Dugar-De Ponte. I am a representative of the Committee for Independence of Buryatia and president of the Free Nations League. It's a great honor and privilege for me to take part in the 9th Free Nations of Post-Russia Forum held in the Eternal City of Rome. I'm a Buryat Mongol, But the second part of my surname is Italian, after my husband, an American of Italian descent. I belong to the nation of thunder wolves, for this is the meaning of the ethnonym Buryat. And so were the founders of Rome, circled by a she-wolf. They share the same wolf totem as the people of the Great Steppe, Turkic and Mongolian nations. Though Virgil once described Rome as imperium sine fine, or an empire without end, today this phrase can be interpreted as a conviction that even if empires rose and fell, the city would last forever. As a descendant of Pax Mongolica, I understand it perfectly well. All empires must fall, but nations should live. My people were and remain the people of the Great Steppe. The blood of the Scythians, Huns, ancient Turks, Uyghurs, and Mongols flows in my veins. For thousands of years, my ancestors created nomadic states and empires, formed military and trade unions, maintained diplomatic relations, enabled brisk trade along the entire Silk Road, spread new technologies, ideologies, and cultural achievements, linking together vast spaces from the Great Wall of China and the banks of the Ganges to the ports of Venice and Hamburg. Today, the entire land from the Urals to the shores of Pacific Ocean is called Russia, but as late as at the beginning of the 18th century, it was still known in Europe as Tartaria Magna, the land of the Great Han. A little more than a year ago, in November 2022, I, together with my colleagues from the Free Nations League, Rafis Kashapov and Ruslan Gabbasov, took part in a panel on the colonization of Russia that took place in Rome within the framework of the European Pavilion. People in the audience were shocked by what we had to say about Russian imperialism. Many of them admitted that in the mind of an average European, Russia is associated with ethnic white Russians, writers like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, Russian ballet, and of course, Vladimir Putin. For too long, a glossy facade of Russian culture has obscured Russia's ugly underbelly from the world. A full-scale, barbaric colonial war unleashed by Moscow against sovereign Ukraine has finally forced the world to see Russia as it is, a colonial empire built on resentment and lies. It conquered and forcibly colonized the lands of more than 100 peoples, yet history textbooks teach of voluntary and peaceful entry of all nations into the Russian Empire. Ask any Russian on the street, and they will argue that Russia has never waged wars of conquest. Even now, propaganda is broadcasting that Russia is not at war with Ukraine, but with the hostile West, that Russia is defending its independence. Buryatia was invaded and subjugated by Russia at the end of the 17th century after a brutal war that lasted for 100 years. During the conquest of its future colonies, the Muscovites held amanats, hostages from the local nobility who were kept chained in fortresses so that their relatives would not rebel. The secret services of modern Russia have revived this disgusting institution of hostage-taking. Rustam Fararidinov was arrested on November 23rd in his home. A father of 3 children and a simple villager who has never been involved in politics, he was detained only because he is a brother of the head of the committee of the Bashkir National Movement abroad, Ruslan Gabbasov. They said, "You will sit for your brother." Now he's facing a charge with a sentence of 7 to 15 years. Throughout history, the Russian state has pursued a deliberate policy of reducing the number of non-Russian indigenous peoples in the occupied lands, especially if they live in the strategically important areas. And it worked. About 100 years ago, the number of Mongols was 650,000 people, while the number of Buryat Mongols was 300,000. Since then, the population of Mongolia has increased more than 4 times, while the number of Buryats increased only by just 50%. During Tsarist times, the empire used to send thousands of criminals to Siberian forced labor camps and prisons. Another attempt to dissolve the Buryats in the mass of the Russian population was the Stolypin reform, when thousands of landless peasants from the western regions of Russia were settled on the lands that used to belong to Buryats. In the 1920s and 30s, as a result of collectivization, thousands of Buryats were exiled to the tundra in the north of Krasnoyarsk region. During the Stalinist repressions in 1937, a wave of arrests covered thousands of citizens of the Republic. There is not a single Buryat family that has not lost their loved ones. Buddhist monks were executed or sent to the Gulag. All monasteries on the territory of Buryatia were closed and destroyed. Buddhism was the only world religion that officially ceased to exist in the USSR by 1940. Today, Moscow uses captive nations as cannon fodder in the war against Ukraine. Putin believes in demography, the way Hitler did. For a Buryat, the probability of dying in the Ukraine war is 275 times higher than for residents of Moscow. From the beginning of the war, the Buryat people have suffered the highest number of deaths in the army, 7 times higher than among those in the central regions of Russia. Numerous experts have already called the disproportionate mobilization of Buryatia ethnic cleansing and an act of genocide. The Kremlin disinformation agents have tried to make the Buryats, who only constitute 0.03% of the population of Russia, the face of war. In early April 2022, after Russian occupation forces left the city of Bucha, fake reports spread online that it was Buryats who committed the atrocities there. And these posts were illustrated by photos of Sakha-Yakut soldiers holding the flag of the Sakha Republic taken in 2020 in the military garrison in the Russian Far East where they served. A thorough investigation has concluded that the cleansing operation or Zachystka was in fact conducted by the burly Slavic guys from the Pskov Air Assault Regiment. Unfortunately, the myth of Buryats being responsible for the Bucha massacre became very popular. The misinformation was even broadcasted by Italian television back in 2022. I have only one explanation. It is much easier to blame for atrocities some exotic savages like the Buryats and Chechens, biblical tribes of Gog and Magog, than the ones who are outwardly indistinguishable from you and belong to the same Christian tradition. But the war is not the only problem of the Buryat nation under Moscow's rule. Our national rights are constantly violated. In 1937, Buryat Mongolian Republic lost 40% of its territory and population when Stalin divided it into 5 parts and gave its western and eastern regions to the neighboring, predominantly ethnic Russian provinces. The Russian government is pursuing a deliberate policy of destroying native languages. In 2018, President Putin signed federal law which ended mandatory instruction in native languages for national republics. On September 10, 2019, Udmurt scholar and activist Albert Razin committed self-immolation in protest against the eradication of the Udmurt language. The Buryat language is also on the verge of extinction. So we perfectly understand the pain and despair that forced him to take this step. Now his name is a symbol of the struggle for revival of native languages for all captive peoples of Russia. Buryatia is ranked among the poorest regions in the country. Although Buryatia is rich in natural resources, most of the profits go to Moscow. Lake Baikal is a sacred sea for the Buryat people. It is the deepest lake in the world, which included in the UNESCO World Heritage List and contains about 20% of the planet's freshwater reserves. In 2020, the Russian state adopted amendments to this law, to the law on the protection of Lake Baikal, which allow Russian railways to carry out large-scale logging. Thus, the greed of the Russian state is leading to irreversible environmental consequences affecting the entire world. As we watch the flourishing of the national cultures, economies, and democracies in the freed republics of the former Soviet Union, we must come to the conclusion that only true sovereignty can save our people from assimilation and extinction. We established the Committee for the Independence of Buryatia. We don't want to be a colony anymore. Buryatia has enough human and natural resources for independence. We are focused on building economic and social stability in our region and establishing mutually beneficial cooperation with our neighbors. We advocate for sovereignty for the peoples and territories in the Russian Federation, together with other national and regionalist organizations united in the Free Nations League. We stand together in solidarity and act as a united front in our common struggle. The defeat of Russia in the war with Ukraine is only a matter of time. The only way to ensure sustainable global peace will be the controlled dissolution or reconstruction of post-imperial space based on the basic principles and documents of the United Nations. A huge totalitarian Russia should cease to exist. Numerous democratic states should arise in post-Russian territory in its stead. We have a lot of work to do, and we need support from the international community in the early stages of nation building. The captive nations need your support. We urge you, leaders of the free world, to empower us at this crucial hour. We have arrived at a truly unique moment of opportunity for our collective liberation. From this precipice, we are precariously on the edge of arriving at freedom or our continued peril and destruction. Help us now as we stand poised and ready to seize our independence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madame Dugarde de Ponte. And yes, thank you very much. I see one hand for one question. Maybe if you could come here so your voice will be in the mic. Thank you very much. Here or here, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, it's better here. We have empty place here.
Please.
Sorry. I think my question will not have sense if I don't make a certain introduction. May I sit down? Okay. Yes. Sorry.
We can have one more moderator. It's great.
Okay. So I never expected this. So great thanks for this very important discourse. My name is Ayana Sambu. From the name, you can see that I come from Asia. And actually, I have been living here in Italy for more than 20 years. But originally, I come from Mongolia. But my ancestors come from Buryatia. And my ancestors came to Mongolia for one reason, because they did not want to accept the Soviet regime. And both my grandmother, she was Russian, and my grandfather comes from the part of the Muharshibir zone of Buryatia. And my grandfather comes from the aristocratic, very noble layer. My great-grandmother, she was the princess of the tribe of Hori. But unfortunately, even though they escaped from Russia to into Mongolia, they were seized, and my great-grandfather, he was arrested and repressed. But these things did not finish there. What happened is, over the decades, our family somehow was, persecuted. So, for example, the sister of my grandfather, she died tragically in an accident because she was Buryat. Her husband was arrested in 30s, and he was executed. In 70s, the brother of my grandfather, he was the head of the infrastructure of Mongolia, only because he wanted to bring some innovations, and was one of the first person to bring the Harley Davidson into Mongolia. Yes, unfortunately, there was a tragic event, and he killed in the auto accident. And the last, my uncle, he also was killed in the accident, especially. And the most tragic thing of my life is that my mother, she also was assassinated, because she was one of the first, the main scientists in the laboratory of the space research and configuration of satellite images, and she worked for the first space flight of Mongolia and she was one of the responsible persons for the theory of this great work done. And unfortunately, in 1991, when I was only 13 years old, and she was assassinated, she was kidnapped. She was tortured, and she was assassinated. She was only 36 years old. And this changed the course of my life and made me understand already then that there was something wrong going on. And what I have to say, that Buryatia, unfortunately, under the rule of Russia, but even Mongolia had a great influence.
Excuse me, sorry, probably we have a strudel. Could you ask the question?
Yeah, and the question is that Mongolia is also the part that can help to somehow change the course of this, this process which are going on with Russia to become independent for these countries. And I think one of the key strategies that could be, through Mongolia, are there any ways to Mongolia help you to become more independent? And do you have any connections with Mongolia? Because I think Mongolia is one of the oases of democracy in between Russia and China.
Actually, our movement has personal ties with the Democratic Party of Mongolia and Mongolian official representative of the state and official political circles. They helped Buryats, especially in these months after the mobilization was announced, and thousands of people had to flee Buryatia. And in this in this hour, Mongolia came to help us, and we are really very appreciative and grateful to Mongolia, because now we understand who our true brothers and sisters are. And we hope that in the future, Mongolia, being a successful democracy, can help us also to build our democratic state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think Europe should intervene.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mateo has a good idea about the questions, that we will have all questions for the speakers in the end of the session. So now we have the session A, all speakers will speak, and then we have 10-20 minutes for the question. Okay?
Yes, if we try to be slightly more disciplined, we should be running on time. So Next speaker, it's the editor of Ingria Without Borders, Maxim Kuzakhmetov.
Yeah, Maxim
Hope
will
I
speak.
didn't torture your surname too much.
Maxim will speak in the Russian, but his colleague from Ingria, Elena, will make the translation. So you're welcome. Elena, you could sit here for this fourth moderator and make translation. Thanks.
Hello. My name is Maxim Kuzakhmetov. I am activist from St. Petersburg. I will speak Russian. Я представитель Ингрии, северо-западного региона России, с центром в Санкт-Петербурге, который окружает область с ужасным названием Ленинградская. Ну и понятно, что такого названия точно не должно быть, а оно есть, ему 1000 лет, и это имя Ингрия.
From St. Petersburg, the northwest district of Russia, and its name is awful, and it's Leningradskaya Oblast, and I think it's a great mistake for us.
Yeah, mistake. Преступление, да. Criminal, crime. Я не хочу говорить о прошлом, потому что эта империя, Российская империя, на протяжении сотен лет приносит несчастье всем народам, которые и ее населяют, и всем своим соседям. Я хочу говорить о будущем.
I don't want to speak about past, and I want to speak about future, because the Russian Empire brings the whole world only problems.
Будущее моего родного региона, Ингрии, прекрасно, потому что Ингрия находится на северо-западе, это окраина империи, она граничит с Эстонией и с Финляндией, это богатый мегаполис, благополучный Санкт-Петербург, у которого есть даже этот пресловутый выход к морю, о чем столетиями нам говорят. У Ингрии все будет хорошо.
So my region, Ingria, has a wonderful future, because it lay between at the northwest of the Russia, between Estonia,
Финляндия.
Finland, and other Baltic countries, and so I see the future of our region.
Ну, даже можно напомнить, что Эстония – это самая благополучная из республик бывшего Советского Союза, а Финляндия – одна из самых благополучных стран Скандинавии, и мы их соседи. То есть это наш потенциал.
Okay, so Estonia is an example of one of the most successful countries, and Finland also. So we are neighbors. So we can repeat this success story.
Так вот, о будущем. Российская, московская, советская, нынешняя путинская империя очень живучая. Она каждый раз возрождается.
So Russia, Russian Empire, and every name we can give to this organism, organism. Is very liveful, so we need to make something with it.
Поэтому в Европе должны осознать, должны смириться с тем, что этой империи не должно быть. Не должно быть, как бы она ни называлась. Федерация, конфедерация, реформированная. Ее не должно быть как целостного государственного образования.
So in Europe, people should to understand that it doesn't depend on the name of this organization or organism, political. We need to. Could you repeat, please?
Может, Олег подскажет, он глубоко в повестке.
No, Russian.
Но этого государства не должно быть в любом виде целостном.
In any state have no has no future.
In any form. So this Russian Empire shouldn't be reborn in a new form of, for example, confederation, so-called New Russia Republic or something like that. It should be disintegrated for 100% at least this time.
So thank you for your help.
Европейские политики глубоко заблуждаются, когда думают о том, что они смогут реформировать эту империю, что они смогут договориться, что там будет демократическое правительство, которое каким-то образом превратит эту империю в благополучную федерацию с равноправными регионами. Этого не произойдет.
European politics are making mistake, then they're thinking that they can
I think Oleg will do it better. Please, Oleg.
No, I'll try to help because it's Elena, she's from India. Okay. Like Maxim said, that some European politics have hopes and wishful thinking that a new reborn Russia federation or confederation will become liberal, democratic, like a normal country. But Maxim says that it could be because the myth and this organism is about imperial system, and they don't want it to change. They could change the name.
So the main thing they are making mistake.
Yeah, so it's mistake to think that it could be reborn in a normal democratic country.
Эта империя начала свой путь к возвышению 500 лет назад. Это, простите, про национальное образование в нынешней империи с того, что разрушила, покорила как будто бы свою часть, Великий Новгород, уничтожив его. Там было вырезано практически все население, те, кто выжил, были депортированы. Город был заселен заново. Это произошло 500 лет назад.
So the first murder of Russian Empire was in 500 years ago in Novgorodian Republic, and maybe they have murdered all of the people in this republic.
После этого империя распадалась в эпоху смутного времени. Она терпела военные поражения. Она дважды распалась в 20 веке и снова возродилась, и возродилась только для того, чтобы организовать новую агрессию, сначала внутри себя против Чечни, просто завоевав ее заново и утопив в крови, а потом выплеснувшись за пределы своих внутренних границ для того, чтобы напасть на Грузию, вмешаться в дела в Сирии, и потом вот эта чудовищная разрушительная война против Украины.
Okay, even in 20th century, this Russian Empire or Soviet Union and other names we can change here made a lot of things to face the real organizations. So we can talk about Chechnya and now about the war in Ukraine. It's all because the imperialistic state of Russia.
And also Maxim tried to tell that for 2 times, even in this century, this empire had collapsed, but not for full collapse. So the last time it was in 1991 when USSR collapsed, but Russian Federation became like the metropolitan area with Moscow, and it's reborn now with this several wars that they tried to kill independent Chechnya at first, Ichkeria, then Sakartvelo, Georgia. They have against war for Syria and also now for the last 10 years Ukraine.
Самое ужасное, что может произойти, если европейские политики попробуют смириться с тем, что происходит, попробовать заключить мир, договориться, как им кажется, с этой Московской империей, еще, может быть, еще будут давить на Украину, что надо смириться с потерей территорий, это будет самое ужасное. Потому что эта империя просто получит передышку для того, чтобы снова возродиться и снова начать агрессию. Все равно в каком направлении.
So the most awful thing that European politics can do now is to try to have a conversation with Russian Empire. And for Russia, it gives only a pause to restore and try to do their worst things once again in other places.
Для Европы и для мира, для Соединенных Штатов нет ничего нового в том, чтобы вмешаться в эти процессы. После Первой мировой войны была принудительно разделена на части Австро-Венгерская империя. После того, как Ирак организовал агрессию против Кувейта, Соединенные Штаты и Европа вмешались, операция «Буря в пустыне» и восстановили порядок. Почему этого не происходит сейчас, я не понимаю.
Maxim can't understand why the nation of free world didn't take a part in this process like it was when 100 years before the Austro-Hungarian Empire was collapsed and it was disintegrated by a Versailles system, by I don't remember this Saint-Germain or other way of connection, and how it was when Iraq started war with Kuwait in 1991, and the coalition of free world, they together put Saddam Hussein into hell for 2 times. And Maxim hope that this time it won't be that European and American political diplomatic will try to make new deal with Russia and with Russia Tsar. It could be Putin, Patrushev, Navalny or other Tsar, but it will be Tsar, and he is afraid that there will be opportunity to try to make this deal not only West with Russia, but they try to put Ukraine to give a territory of Ukraine land to make this deal with devil, with a hope that this time it won't be like it was for 20 times before.
На сегодняшний день Украина защищает не себя, она защищает Европу, защищает демократию и защищает свободу этой Западной Европы. И если Запад не вмешается, то следующим, после любой передышки, даже если Россия, проиграв сейчас, там, подписав капитуляцию, как Германия в 2018 году, она снова возродится для того, чтобы снова напасть.
Ukraine now fight not only for Ukraine, they are fighting for Europe, and if European politics have no understanding of this, so Russia next time will fight within our countries.
Как минимум то, что сейчас должно было бы происходить в Европе, в любом парламенте, это обсуждение будущего, как именно надо будет разделить эту империю. Хотя бы обсуждать. Этого нет. Это в европейской политике боятся.
So, European politics can discuss these things with each other and with our regions in Russia. But they don't do this, and it is a big mistake.
Okay, so the last words probably.
Ну, есть страшилки, да, так называемые. Вот нельзя допустить развала России, потому что расползется ядерное оружие. Сейчас как раз-таки распространением ядерного оружия Москва и занимается, размещая его, например, в Белоруссии, или отправляя ядерные технологии в Иран или в Северную Корею. Вот кто самое страшное и опасное государство на сегодняшний день. Поддерживает террористов, любой, Хамас, например, конечно же, найдет себе дружбу в первую очередь в Кремле.
And like a summary, Maxim want to say that there is a lot of Kremlin's propaganda narratives. They try to sell whole the world, for example, about the nuclear weapon. So if Russia will collapse, that the nuclear weapon will share and spread whole the world. But now we know that Russia Federation makes this nuclear weapon in Belarus, that they help to make nuclear weapon for People Republic of North Korea and for Iran, and that Russia support all terroristic movement, for example, Hamas, Hezbollah, and others. So the main problem is not disintegration of Russia. The main problem, if Russia won't be disintegrated and like a part of the evil coalition, they try to push our world in the Third World War.
Ну и последнее, да, чем пугают, конечно же, что начнется масштабная гражданская война, внутри будет кровище. Этим в первую очередь пугают, как ни парадоксально, хорошие империалисты, российские мигранты, которые сейчас в лице Ходорковского и других находятся за границей, только не распад. Не будет никакой гражданской войны. Был распад Советского Союза. В целом, сравнительно мирные конфликты начались вообще до 1991 года и носили локальный характер. Будет мирный, нормальный раздел. Особенно если Европа и Соединенные Штаты будут его контролировать и вмешиваться. И не будут бояться хотя бы обсуждать это.
Okay, for the last point, Maxim says that another one Kremlin propaganda narrative is about if Russia will collapse, there will be a real big civil war like Bosnia for 17 billion kilometers, but it's lie, because when you saw collapse, there wasn't a lot of conflicts, and all conflicts which are begun like Armenia and Azerbaijan, it began when USSR was, it's not after it collapsed. So if we will be proactive and the nation of free world, for example, in European Union, in the United States, Canada and others will take a part to make this process controlled, there won't be civil war. So we shouldn't be afraid of collapse the last empire in Europe.
Слава Украине! Ингрия будет свободной.
Героям слава! Glory to Ukraine, Ingria will be free. Thank you, Maxim.
Questions?
You will have question after the end of the session, yeah. Елена, thank you for the translation, thanks.
Елена Кустулайна настоящий германланд, в отличие от меня.
Thank you very much, especially for what you said also on the fight that the Ukrainians are fighting, which is not for them alone, it's for the entire Europe. I would like to invite Stanislav Suslov, Vice Chairman of the Committee of the Independent Confederation of Siberia.
Ladies and gentlemen, so-called Russian Federation has started. So-called Russian Federation. Up. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, so-called Russian Federation has started the craziest and most needless war in more than 100 years. The only point of this war is to preserve the power of Russian dictator Putin and his junta. Their goal today is not only expensive existence, but also world domination. And if they manage to realize their plans, it will be the worst world order of as possible. Graft and corruption, the liquidation of personal freedoms, murder and genocide. There is what Putin's dictatorship wants for the whole world. The danger also lies in the fact that of the 8 billion people on the planet Earth, no more than 2 billion people the European principles and of humanism and peaceful cooperation. That is only on false. The others are ready either to accept violence or to be violent. The 75% are willing to accept dictatorship. Do you think that is dangerous for our civilization or no? The Soviet Union, and after it the so-called Russian Federation, has constantly channeled massive financial resources to create new military conflicts, to support terrorism in different regions and to destabilize democratic countries. I have already spoken about it in the January this year in the European Parliament, and I repeat it now. I think that the civilized world, and above all politicians in the West and in the United States, do not fully understand that dangers coming from the current so-called Russian Federation. In this country, theft and corruption are a major part of unofficial state policy. The so-called bandit romance is the core of the mind of the majority of the population of the country. Respect for the populations of large cities such as Moscow, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg, Novosibirsk, and some others, where some part of the population is a little oriented towards European standards. But there is a very small group of population. The majority is a gray and embittered mass of people with modern gadgets in their hands and a stone or knife behind their backs. Today, Putin's junta receives finance from the sale of oil and gas, diamonds, gold, metals, and other resources. Almost none of this money is directed to the development of the regions where the resources are extracted. But in the so-called Russian Federation, funding for education and science is constantly reduced. This is the reason that the so-called Russian Federation is a backward country and use foreign technologies. All these facts characterize that the so-called Russian Federation as a colonial resource empire. It is necessary to destroy the empire and help to nations and regions to get freedom. The most important thing for this is, first, support the maximum military assistance to Ukraine, and second, support, including financial support, for national and regional movements inside the so-called Russian Federation and outside its borders. As Vice Chairman of the Committee of the Independent Confederation of Siberia, I want to say that Siberia can and eventually will be independent. The program of Siberian's development is on our website and YouTube channel. Siberia has a great potential for development. Siberians do not need wars and do not need a Moscow empire. A democratic system of the management will eventually provide a stable development of our country, Free Siberia. We will be reliable partners for democratic countries and will develop as a country of high technologies. Siberia's resources are not the basis, but only the first step to economic development and development of high technologies in the future. Free Siberia will reject nuclear weapons, because in the modern world, it is not nuclear weapons, but high technologies. This is the base of security. The imperial center of Moscow is very afraid of the future independence of people and regions. They will disable Moscow for financing wars and terrorist organizations. The freedom of the peoples and terrorists of the so-called Russian Federation will be a danger to any imperial ambitions of Moscow. And that is the reason why Moscow spent a great money to false propaganda. Unfortunately, this propaganda works against independence. Progressive countries need to develop a counter-propaganda system. It costs a lot of money, but it's important because if the so-called Russian Federation keep its imperial system, it will endanger Europe first of all. Sorry. China will try to press its interests on Europe also by means of the so-called Russian Federation. In this case, an independent Siberia would be a powerful deterrent for China. Right now, China can easily manipulate the Russian Federation, but when there is a free Siberia behind the Urals and several other free countries, each of which has its own strategic interests, it will be very difficult for China.
Sorry, 2 minutes, please. Okay, thanks.
Sorry. Free Siberia will be one of the countries that will provide security for Europe from the east. If the so-called Russian Federation is preserved, even after losing the war in Ukraine, in 5 or 10 years, this empire will start aggressive Europe again. It's speak Maxim Kuzahmetov. And it is important for everyone in Europe to answer the question for himself. He wants such a scenario for this future or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stanislav Suslov, Vice Chairman of the Committee of the Independent Confederation of Siberia. And now I'd like to give the floor to Albakov Shamil, Vice Chairman and English representative in the Committee for the Nations of the North Caucasus.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Albakov Shamil. I am the Vice Chairman of the Committee of the North Caucasus. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk in this event before the Italian politicians, the Italian deputies, Ukrainian politicians, and the politicians of other countries. It's really significant that this event takes place today on the anniversary of the tragic date when Russian troops illegally entered the territory of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria on 11 December 1994, the victims of which we have honored in the beginning of this conference. Today I will talk about the newly formed Committee of the People of the North Caucasus, remind some historic facts about the struggle of the people of the North Caucasus, and present the national aspirations of our people. The people of the North Caucasus have been subjected to genocide and extermination by the Russian state, the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, the so-called Russian Federation, and all its metaphors have one thing in common, that is hostility towards Caucasus and reprisals against its population. We hope that this appeal will be heard by politicians and public figures around the world and will serve as a reminder of the need to continue fully support to Ukraine in its struggle for its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Hopefully, politicians will realize also that the time has come to support our nations also and to cooperate with us. We also hope that our participation in such events like this will help our people to return to our historical struggle for freedom and independence, to actively mobilize all potential, both in the diaspora and in the homeland, to defend our future in all legal ways and without any provocations or without exposing the civilian populations to further reprisals and persecution. We remember well the two Russian military aggression against Ichkeria. Russian Federal Army killed over 300,000 civilians and 42,000 children. All the war crimes committed by the Russian army were committed with barbaric cruelty and with the aim to exterminate Chechens and to subjugate all peoples of the Caucasus. By conducting genocide in Chechnya, the Russian Federation demonstrated to other peoples of Caucasus that if they express their will of self-determination, they will face the same fate. In this way, the Russian Empire kept people of Caucasus under its complete submission. The creation of our committee was brought about in October 2022 at the Conference of People of the North Caucasus in Kiev, on the initiative of the government of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria in exile and Ukrainian politicians. A platform was created for representatives of all the people of Caucasus. In January 2023, in European Parliament, during the Forum of Free People of Post-Russian Federation, the Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria in exile, Ahmad Zakayev, announced the project of Confederation of the People of North Caucasus. Following this announcement, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria, Inal Sharif, went to USA with the mission to present it to various politicians, experts, and to the members of various Caucasian diasporas in USA. On 27 May 2023, an international conference was held to mark the 105th anniversary of the formation of the Union of the People of the North Caucasus. In 1918, the Mountain Republic was recognized by many states, and it is a symbolic example of how Caucasians experienced the unity and achieved their statehood together, successfully blending democratic principles and traditional foundations of our Caucasian societies. In November 23, with the participation of the deputies of the European Parliament and the deputies of Ukrainian Verkhovna Rada, representatives of Circassia, Chechen, English, and Dagestani people gathered in the European Parliament in Brussels and created the Committee of the North Caucasus People. The leadership of the committee was elected. The chairman is Iyad Yugar, a representative of the Circassian diaspora in the United States, and his two vice chairmen are Adel Bakshawi, a Circassian from Jordan, and myself. Now I will express the aspiration of the people of the North Caucasus, and we start with the Circassians. The Circassians were killed, 90% of their population was killed or expelled. And now, in the homeland, only 1 million of Circassians live in their homeland, and the other 8 million are in diaspora. The Circassian people struggle to recognize their genocide and to do all they can to restore the Circassian statehood. As we know, the Chechen Republic is struggling for its independence, and our committee is supporting all the work that the Chechen government of the government of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria in exile does. Also, the English people struggle to recognize their genocide committed in 1992 and the deportation of English and Chechen people in 1944. as we see all the history of all the people of the Caucasus is genocide, extermination, persecution. So our committee is struggling to restore the historical rights, the historical geography of these people, and reestablish their statehood. And here I address all the international community and ask to continue to support Ukrainian resistance. And we ask the Ukrainian resistance to continue in this way and do not and to struggle to the end for the victory of us all. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bakov Shamil, Vice Chairman and English representative of within the Committee for the Nations of the North Caucasus. The last speaker for this session is Dmitry Dorovskik. Dorovskik.
Very difficult surname for everyone, for everywhere.
No, it's not. Dorovskik.
Dorovskik.
Dorovskik. Is it right? Dorovskik?
Right.
Okay, so it's handable.
Yes.
Please, you have the floor. You're the coordinating council of Circassia.
Circassia, Kuban Republic. Yes,
Kuban Republic.
There are nuances. We continuing a theme about Caucasus in other not the same region, but more north and west part of Caucasus.
Between Caspian and Black Sea.
Yes. I was born here in this land, better maybe say that Russian colony, which locates amidst Azov, Black Sea, and Caucasus. Our region has several names. For example, Slavic part of population, for example, as me from Cossacks, we name it Kuban, and for example, Adygeans call it Circassia. But the fact that it's the same land, the same region. Our land was twice occupied by Russia, first by the empire during the bloody Caucasian War in the 19th century, and later in early 20th century was occupied by Soviet Russia, which annexed the independent Kuban Republic. I represent this movement, this coordination council, which members from various cultures, religions, and political views. I maybe a little bit more tell about it. So this council was formed with the help of these forums of free peoples, because our region has a lot of nuances, internal conflicts between various ethnical and cultural groups, and we try through this coordination council try to solve these problems. That's why we have, for example, representatives in this council from Adygeans, from Cossacks, Cossack nationalists, from all who lives in or lived in this region. And we have managed to formulate a project for the imperialization of Russia in preparation for this forum. The main author of this strategy is just a project. We will develop it more. The main author is Vladimir Miroshnichenko, our friend. Also, he is from Stavropol region. He lives in Chile, and also he is in the same time Chilean politic. And also he make it with the help of some Western politicians. So I would like to present you, I will try to make it briefly, several provisions of proposed strategy. Well, no, as it follows from its name, the goal of strategy is the imperialization of Russia. At present, Russia is an empire which, with a large number of colonies, attempting to reclaim territories in former colonies and so on. Within the country, the majority of regions, both national and inhabited by Slavic people, play a role of resource suppliers, including human resources for ongoing conquest wars, such the one war which now Russia conducts against Ukraine. The nature of state is largely determined by how Russia was formed. It emerged like classic colonial empire, with one difference, that there are no colonies overseas. They collected and invaded, conquested these territories around its periphery on the continent. That's the difference. It is necessary completely reformat Russia and rid it of its imperial nature. Most likely, de-imperialization can only be achieved through decolonization and the independence of neighboring countries. Theoretically, of course, it is possible, maybe, if Russia remains in the borders of 1991 and become a real democratic federation, but we see, our colleagues see that it's some kind of fantasies, because we truly know the essence, the nature of this state, of this system, and we understand that such outcome is unlikely possible. So we should be prepared, should be ready for this disintegration, of course. Also, because the main principle from which we go, that it is the subjectivity and sovereignty of regions, and they themselves should decide their future, their unions, and so on. Well, a little bit about problems and challenges of regionalist movements in this yet Russian space, future post-Russian space. They can be divided into two types. First, internal problems include issues within the liberation movements, which often engage in a struggle against each other, not against common enemy, but against each other. So that's one of reason, because we created this coordination council, because we had a lot of conflicts amongst, not just against Cossacks and Circassians, but also among Cossack movements, also struggles. So that's a problem. When we conduct these conflicts, the empire still exists, still kills, still take all resources, and so on. Also, the problem is that leaders and movements don't have a lot of experience.
Sorry, Dmitry, 2 minutes, please.
Okay, I will be faster. Problem, yes, another disputes about historical territories. Also, external problems, so I can say that, of course, it is war against Ukraine, that question of counteroffensive, and the transformation of warrant to protected one, because if Russia defeat, it would open a window of possibilities for colonies. And another one problem, of course, it's so-called common Russian opposition, or Russian liberals, who sometimes the same as Putin, just want to preserve, to save this system, this empire, but make it a beautiful, attractive facade. Well, we have tasks for this strategy, and this task should be solved. Firstly, it's crucial to legitimize the idea that subjects of Russian Federation should have right to determine their future, and this idea should become the mainstream in the public in the amongst the public opinions, as well as idea of united and indivisible Russia should become more marginal. Secondly, we aim to avoid disputes over borders and historical territories and prevent a legal vacuum in future international subjects. I mean, this it's forced measures we should what we should do. It's division Russia through the borders of administrative borders of current subjects, and after that, when they get their independence, directly through the referendums, parliamentary democracy, and international mediators, they should discuss and solve these all issues about borders, territories, and so on. This is the way to avoid
Dmitry, 1-2 sentences for summary.
Yes, and okay. Yes, and okay, the final is a summary about steps. We have 8 steps to implementation of this strategy. First of all, this strategy should be accepted by, firstly, Ukraine, officially and publicly. Then should be formed an intergovernmental coalition. Other former Russian colonies and other countries should join Ukraine in this establishment of contacts with various representatives of the Russian opposition, both as decolonizers and Russian liberals. Then selection of legitimate representatives for the regions. I mean, this should be it should be done more officially. It should legitimize these representatives and finally formate transition governments. And also should be considered all crucial issues such as reparations, nuclear weapons, and so on. Then fifth, presentation of these representatives to Western governments, maximizing their legitimacy for the global community. Creation of understanding that sanctions should not be lifted until the process of deimperialization is complete. Subsequent actions according to the situation with the primary goal of destabilizing the Putin regime or its successors, contributing to its downfall by
Dmitry, sorry, please, the last...
yes, the last sentence, yes. After a change in power, granting freedom to federal subjects and transferring power to their transitional governments. That's all, thanks.
Thank you, Dmitry. My colleagues have an idea, so now we should have the coffee break. Yeah, but we have very tight schedule, so probably if... No, yeah, it's okay. Friends, so probably we'll make this coffee break if somebody wanted to go for 10-15 minutes to...
Sorry.
Or we could have this coffee break for question for the speakers if you have, and go there. Yeah. Yeah. So we're working. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. Yeah. So if somebody tired, you could go here to the foyer and have the water and have the connection. Okay. Friends, if somebody have question for our dear Shamil, Ahmed, Stanislav, Maxim, Rajana, and Dmitry, please hold your hand and we could discuss it. Yeah, please come here.
Please. Thank you. So I wrote my question down. So I will address my question to Mr. Suslov or Dorovskis, but...
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Rosella Marafino, but yeah. Anyone can feel free to answer to my question. So my first question will be how widespread is the support of your idea of decolonization in contemporary Russia. So what political, financial, social forces in your country, in the country, do you intend to rely on? And which external forces could guarantee a safe process of decolonization? So, and in this in this theme, in which extent are countries like USA or China involved in this? This will be the first question.
Thank you. Please come, Stanislav. It's from Stanislav Suslov, yeah? I understand you correct? So, yeah. Stanislav, you're welcome. We all understand that it's very hard to be between PRC and the Moscow metropolis, so...
Really, hello. Really, today I can't say what it will in tomorrow, because it is a difficult process, because today we don't know what may be tomorrow. For example, tomorrow Putin will die, and after that, collapse start in the Kremlin. It's one situation. What, Madam? Yeah, I'm sure that it will be collapse after that. No, I know. I think that that it will be collapsed because I see, for example, in country where I live, in Serbia, I see some powers who it's difficult powers of Putin's system. They want to save the Russian empire, but they are not work with Putin. Is, for example, Russian democratic societies, yeah.
Okay, sorry, we don't have now debate, so probably if you answer the question, it could be the next question. If we have some other remarks, please hold the...
maybe Rosella has a follow-up question, and then I think we can move with the other questions or speaker.
Yeah, if also if you mean that this
yeah, of course. You could sit here.
Wait, Ahmed. First we finish with these questions, and then you give your opinion.
So this
Thank you.
process of decolonization can also begin during the life of Vladimir Putin or not, and don't you think that dividing the Russian Empire will conduct to a civil war, to a violent reaction?
Sorry, maybe I not understand all question because my English not good. If you can translate, Alek, I answer the question.
Sorry, I speak with Ahmed and don't hold the question. Sorry.
As we see, all conflicts in Russian and last in history started from Moscow. When Moscow not want to give freedom for regions, for example, with Chechen Republic, for example, in last history, and if it was in Soviet Union, when in what is the city where was people's protests in
Novocherkassk,
for example, Novocherkassk. Of all problems started from Empire Moscow. I, as for example, I am citizenship of Siberia. Mr. Zakayev citizenship of Chechnya. We haven't problem of Chechnya and Siberia. We haven't problem of Siberia and Bashkortostan. We haven't problem of Siberia and
And whole world. It's only Moscow has a problem with whole world. Yeah.
all problems started from Moscow, only from Moscow, because Moscow haven't nothing.
Stanislav.
Sorry, one moment. As saying in Russian, Moscow is not Russia. Russia is not Moscow. It was in last, it will be tomorrow.
Thank you. Prime Minister Zakayev, please. Then, in 10 minutes, even less, I would give the floor to Vitaly Ginsburg for the next session.
Our problem is not Putin. Our problem is Russian Empire. We have to know about that. Even Putin will die tomorrow, nothing will change in Russian Empire. Because Russia started war against Chechnya in 1994. Putin even does not exist as a politician, but war started. And war will be continue until we will not war in Ukraine. До тех пор, пожалуйста, переведи, пока мы не выиграем войну в Украине, никаких изменений ни в России, нигде не произойдут. И мы должны понимать вот это. Если мы сегодня какими-то ложными посылами будем обманывать Европейский Союз, Соединенные Штаты Америки, говоря о том, что вот Путина не станет и все изменится, ничего не изменится.
The main point, and we should understand it very pure and very strongly, that the problem is not in Putin. The main point in the imperial system of Russia, and the main question for us is for whole world is to win war in Ukraine. Before the war in Ukraine won't be victory in war. Before Russia will not lose. We shouldn't speak about how it could be when Putin died, because it's wishful thinking that something could change if Putin died. So we should understand very correctly and distinctly that the main our task now is the win war that Russia and Belarus started against Ukraine.
И международное сообщество сегодня должно требовать от России не прекращения войны, а выдворения российских войск с территории Украины. Только деоккупация Украины может положить конец существующей системе. А пока сохраняется система, Путины в России не переведутся, нам надо это знать. И проблема не с Путиным, проблема с той системой, которая существует многие века. Спасибо.
And if some political from European Union, United States, or other free world countries try to communicate and speak with Russia, it shouldn't be communicate about to stop the fire. It should be about to deoccupy all the occupation territory in Ukraine and also probably in Chechnya and Moldova, Sakartvelo, and so on. Yeah. And before it, Russia will lose the war and all occupied territory will not deoccupy it. We have no chance to change the system because they will have new Putin. They also have new Tsar and new Samoderzhevs and so on. So the problem is of the imperial system of the Russian Empire, so-called federation. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now give the floor to Vitaly Ginsburg, who is a Russian entrepreneur and blogger.
Thank you, Matteo. And we have started the session B, potential economic trade and security cooperation argument between the future independent states of post-Russian spaces and the countries of the free world. And of course, after all speeches, we'll have time for question for speakers of this session, and probably if you have more question to speakers in the previously session A. Thanks.
Good evening, colleagues. I 8 times participate in this forum, and for my opinion, all this forum working like standard procedure. Regional and national activists explain, people explain foreign political about two big problems. First of all, about criminal what provide Russia 100 years for this on this land, on this territory against this people, against this population. And second, they presented potential economical and social development this population, this state in future. This is from one side. And second side, people, political listen, agree, listen, speak this, agree, and provide the best methodics, best conception of management. Nothing to do, nothing to change. This is problem. What I would like speak about this problem. Nothing to change when political, when the West nothing to do and not understood all risks for what has come from Russia in this situation. First of all, I am not propose that tomorrow start war against Russia. It's not nothing. This need organize and playing with positive sum, not with negative like play Russia. Was everything was everybody lose, everything lose. Need positive sum. Was everything have win, everything have benefits. What I mean, first of all, usually this is how can help Russian region, Russian nation. First of all, this is support Ukraine. Win Ukraine and collapse and problem from Russia. This is the best help to the Russian nation. Secondly, for my opinion, this is understood was Russian. This is irrational system for all, for political, economical, population, and other. And impossible listen and provide dreams where somebody can be changed. It depend from the good Russians, the best Russian future with Navalny and other proposed. Nothing to change. Russian system not depend from the people. This is irrationality, art state, and this base for the natural Nazism, natural Russian word, natural Russian matrix. Without destroy this system, nothing to change. And secondly, Russia spread three Russian government, Russian authorities spread three main narratives. This is if it's collapse Russia, this is big problem. It's nothing. Secondly, nuclear weapons said nothing, and China and Russian liberal opposition the same repeat this narrative and use for him. What afraid from Russia? Russia now is situation is very bad situation. This is 5D. Russia now in degradation, destabilization, delegitimization, depopulation, and demotivation elite, disintegration, demotivation elite. What afraid? For example, just now, in Russia presented new phase, permanent Russian crisis, X-crisis. And everybody discuss what is it. X is price of X like American. This is problem. General prosecutor take for the X. This is for example what situation in Russia. What West afraid nothing. Afraid afraid fake. Not afraid, really potential. afraid just Russian fakes, Russian propaganda. And secondly, and after, how it can help optimize rationalization Russia. Confusion of Russian regional confusion new post-Russian states. It's not, I not propose organize ambassador in all countries, but accept this problem. This problem is really Russian don't have future. In future, West must be works with new post-Russian countries, with new activists, with new leaders, and need now speaks with him, try support him, ask problem for this, and in January organize support. First, for what possible do it for this is delegitimization Russian, delegitimization Russian property. Because tomorrow it's fantastic. Tomorrow organize independent station. They cannot develop it because Russia take all resources. These resources, part of in Moscow, are the main part on the west. This is resources in jurisdiction, in the west jurisdiction. And this is resources, this is criminal resources, because this is not legally money, those legally activists. This is Putin's frontman resources. And possible have lawyer, legal instrument works with this and help region in future. Before war, this is researches just Russian population, post-Russian population, just Russian regions, because Moscow don't have nothing. Moscow take just resources region. Today, this is other situation. Today, this is part of main part of resources. This is Ukraine for the reparation, and other part. This is resource for the developed post-Russian nation, post-Russian states. And for my opinion, if it's not understood, this is nothing to do. Just first of understood our activity, not efficiency, and we must. I don't know how it's possible, but explain West leaders what the best help, the best position, what I think. Thank you very much, and excuse me for my English.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ginsburg. Thanks a lot. And now I would like to invite to take the floor Denis Ugryumov, representative of the social political movement Free Ingria. Yes. Welcome.
Denis, you will speak English, but if you need to help to translate, you'll ask, yeah? Understand correct?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My English is absolutely not fluently, but I will try to be understandable for you. I know the short speech is the best speech. I will try to do it. But my friend, Oleg, will help me with translation. It's an honor for me to stay in front of you and have possibility to say some words about our movement. This amazing hall contains some people who is representative of social political movement who fighting for independences of their nations, their regions, their countries. We are totally different. But my question is as follows: what common aim we everybody have? We have common enemy. Our enemy is the regime of Mr. Putin, because this guy and these fucking gangs can steal the future of our babies, our children. Everybody who try to do it must be terminated. Because if the Russian Federation will stay under the leadership of Mr. Putin, everybody will know have future. What's common between Chechenian guys, between Circassian guys, between Buratian, between Ingrian guys, between Europe countries? We have common troubles. We have common troubles. Our trouble is Mr. Putin's and his Putin's Russia. This state will provide us troubles again and again and again, year by year. And I have to say that we will know, that we will not, Oleg, please help me, если мы позволим этим людям оставаться у власти, мы будем иметь проблемы и в дальнейшем.
If we permit them to be an authority in the future, we'll have a lot of problems in the future.
What we have to do right now to reject Mr. Putin from the power of Russia? Мы не можем признать его следующих выборов. This future elections is not elections. It is pseudo-elections procedure. Я обращаюсь ко всем европейским странам с простой просьбой. Результаты следующих путинских выборов не должны быть признаны. Не должны быть признаны.
Denis says that it's very important to understand that in Russia there is no election, that which Putin and other Russians call election is pseudo-election, is just to elected the Tsar. So it's very important to understand in Europe for all politics that this result of this election shouldn't be legitimate or shouldn't be recognized. Yes, thank you, Ahmed.
Yes, it's totally true. No one world's leader cannot shake hands with Mr. Putin. No one. And then, after that, our child will have understand. With Mr. Putin, we will have no future. No future under Putin's leadership. No future under Putin's leadership, not only for Russia, but for neighbors' country and for Europe and for some nations, some folks around of Russia. My speech is extremely short, and in the end of my speech, I want to say some words for Russian people in Russian language. I hope that my short speech will be visible not for Europe country, but and for Russian Federation too. I want to say, свобода – это власть над собой. Мы никогда и никому не можем позволить отнять это право у нас и у наших детей. Если мы не отвоюем свободу для своих детей, этого никто за нас не сделает. Я хочу, чтобы это помнили. Наше поколение должно сделать только одно. Мы должны пробудить в наших детях веру в то, что будущее принадлежит им, и что только они должны его определять. И напоследок я хочу сказать 4 слова, которыми, надеюсь, определить наши взаимоотношения с соседями и вообще с Европой, и в том числе с Украиной. Эти 4 слова следующие. Освобождение, правосудие, покаяние, примирение. Спасибо, я закончил.
Thank you. Do you want to translate it on English? That is the last 2 sentences, Elena? You will do it for me? Okay. Denis said that there is a real, extremely important things to making our children, in our grandchildren, the hope and the faith about their liberty, freedom is the most important thing. And that only you, by your hands, could choose and change the world. And for Russian people, it's very important to understand 4 points to peace with themselves and with the world. The first is the occupation. All countries that now Moscovia or Russian Federation, Russian Empire occupied, from Chechnya till Ukraine. Yes, so the first is the occupation. The second step was you say? It's about the justice. So everyone who makes these war criminals, make terrorist acts, should have a court, and it should be like it was with Nazi in Nuremberg. So the evil should have the real court. And the third step, it was about. Probably somebody could help me. The better word in English for it.
Покаяние. Попросить прощения.
The repentance. Repentance, yeah, to say really sorry that our country, that our people do. For example, like Willy Brandt do it in 1972, I think, yeah, in Warsaw, when he stepped on his needles in the near the monument of Warsaw Ghetto and said that all German people. Willy Brandt wasn't a Nazi. Yeah, he was. He tried to fight for the Hitler, but he also says that it's also my way to say excuse me. And the last fourth step is to
примирение.
Is to be in peace. So to make a new collective architecture of the collective safety in Europe, in the world. So thank you, and we hope the Ingria will be free and will be
obligatory. Thank you so much. If somebody has a question, I'm ready to answer.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Denis Ugrimov. I would like now to call Inna Kurochkina. Welcome, representative of the Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria, journalist and producer of Ichkeria News, and filmmaker. Please.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers and special to Senator Giulio Maria Terzi di Sanagata. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ukrainian, born in Georgia, and I'm citizen of Chechen Republic of Ichkeria. In 1990, a Russian philosopher, Vladimir Solovyov, wrote about the fallacy Russian Orthodox Church perpetrated around Christianity in Russia. He writes that the Russian Church is misleading people, and that followers of religion, for example, Diramalai, who worship the hole in the Izba, do their beliefs more justice. Their ritual being having drilled a hole in the wall of a hut in some dark corner, put their lips into it and repeat many times, "My Izba, my hole, save me." They reduced the object of worship to an oversimplification, and they were widely insane, but at least they didn't mislead anyone. They said about hut, and rightly called the spot they drill in the wall just that, a hole. But the Russian Orthodox Church calls the doctrine of Christ a worldview and practices. They have nothing to do with Christianity. The deception is inexcusable, right, a Russian philosopher. And if today world has understood that the Russian Orthodox Church is a traditional anti-human organization of punitive bodies of special service Chekists supporting terrorism, massacres, and invasion wars, with the concept of Russian people, citizen of Russian Federation, and of course the structure of the Russian Federation itself, there is a huge deception, misleading of world community. On 27th of November in Moscow, 25th World Russian People Council has started, devoted to the theme, the present and the future of Russian world. It was addressed by Putin and Patriarch Kirill, aka FSB officer Gundyaev. At this gathering, there was a shift in gears. A clear formulation has been established. Russia in an empire. Russia is not a nation, is not a nationality, is not an ethnos, not belonging to Orthodox religion, and not even an ideology. Russian is a worldview. Everyone who shares its worldview is Russian. Russia has always been an empire and will always be an empire. Never has Russia been a republic or federation, only an empire. You will ask, what about 1991? What about Boris Yeltsin, who proclaimed the Russian Federation a democratic republic? What about the statesmen of Russian liberals, who still claimed Russia was a democratic republic under Yeltsin? This is an inexcusable lie, misrepresentation. Putin and Gundyaev has finally reduced everything to a hat and a hole. They called things by their proper names. Yes, Russia for many centuries has been an empire and thus an entity that takes other people's lands, appropriates them, and destroys the peoples in the territories it conquers. Everything fell into place after this statement. And the question immediately arises, addressed to Russian liberals who claim that they built a beautiful democratic Russia in 1991, but Putin came and brought terror with him. Russian liberals have served the most disgusting role because they have misled both the Russian people and the international community. They did not call things by their proper names, like Putin. They didn't say, we have always been an empire and we remain an empire. They say to the West, we are democratic republic. To be a democratic republic was, however, hindered by the massacres they organized in the Caucasus from the first day of the creation of the Russian Federation in Georgia in 1991 and in Chechnya 1994. And thus, they prefer to simply lie. The first person who called things by their names directly called the Russian Federation an empire in December 1991 was the president of Independence Georgia, Zviad Gamsahurdia. Russia started a coup against Zviad and installed a protege, criminal and KGB general Eduard Shevardnadze. The unprecedented campaign of discrediting sold to the West is all on the conscience of Russian liberals. Unprecedented in their cruelty, gangs sponsored by Russia organized a real terror for us in Georgia. On 21st December will be 32 years since the beginning of the massacre that he carried out in Tbilisi by the forces of the so-called Russian Federation. 31st December will mark exactly 30 years since the liquidation of our first president, Zviad Gamsahurdia. The investigation of his association is still not concluded. Friends, today on December 11, 1994, the so-called Democratic Russian Federation launched a full-scale military war against the independent state of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria. As a result of two fierce wars, the first of which the citizens of Chechen Republic won, a peace treaty was signed in the Kremlin between two independent states, the Russian Federation and the Chechen Republic. Thus, Russia recognized the independence of the Chechen Republic. But 3 years later, Russia attacked Chechnya with even greater ferocity and occupied its territory. If things were called by their proper names, that this was an imperial conquest and genocide of the Chechen people. After all, 300,000 civilians were killed. But it is on the conscience of Russian liberals. They didn't call this massacre an imperial conquest. Instead, they call it the establishment of constitutional order. And their state they called not an empire, but a democratic state. Just as the case of Georgia, Russian liberals didn't call Russia an empire when it staged a military coup in our country and occupied Abkhazia and Samachablo. But today, Putin himself dispelled the fog. Russia has always been an empire and will always be an empire. If we'll take back, and they will back the lands that once rightfully belonged to the Russian Empire, Putin promised. That means he has set out to take back the Baltic states, Poland and Finland. It means that the Soviet Empire would also recollect and remind itself of its socialist conquest in the lands of Czechoslovakia, Balkans, Bulgaria, and Hungary. We only want our own back, Putin explains sincerely. He challenged the West. Here I have revealed my intentions to you. I am not making a mess. We are an empire. We have always done it because we are Russians. I have told you this openly. I'm not playing hide and seek with you. I'm not calling things by other names like Russian liberals. And now he's expecting an adult and coherent response from the West. Now the West will not be in a position to say that it misheard him. The ball is now in the Western court, acknowledge or pretend to play dumb. The West played dumb at the expense of the lives of Chechens, Georgians, and Ukrainians. This is a separate issue to be addressed with the West and with Russian liberals who perpetrated this big scam on our lives. The West preferred to keep talking to Moscow while Moscow was killing our people. The West preferred to betray Zviad Gamsahurdia and Johar Dudaev. We are in pain, our woods bleed. Our dead look at us. The West didn't want to hear us, didn't want to help us. But now the West has been informed that on their doorstep is not a Christian country, but the hut with the hole. And it hides it no longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Inna Kurochkina, for your comments and also your historical perspectives. That is always very useful to refresh our mind. Now, as the last speaker of this session, I would like to invite Lyudmila Buimister, please, member of the Ukrainian Parliament. Honorable Buimister is a member of the Ukrainian Parliament and officer of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, member of NATO Parliamentary Assembly. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of today's very important conference, my Italian counterparts. It is especially important that we're meeting here today when Italy is going to take over the presidency in G7 next year. And we can actually see and feel deeply your support right now, which is very, very important for us in this difficult moment when my country is fighting for its territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence. Russia has always been an imperial state, and that we've heard many, many times today. Today is a very sad day for the Chechen people, is one of numerous dates where Russia was committing the acts of genocide against different people. And the world indeed was struggling to recognize it in due course. The acts of genocide that the Soviet regime was committing by humanly engineered holodomors in Ukraine in the 20th century is just one example of that. But I see that the world is waking up. Since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine started, many countries joined the recognition of those acts of genocide, as they should recognize the other acts of genocide of Chechen people, of the people of Caucasus, and of the independent people that are now occupied by Russian Federation. I want to congratulate and to thank Ahmed Zakayev and all the people of North Caucasus who are fighting alongside with us in this war since 2014, as the war started almost 10 years ago. And we will mark the 10th anniversary next year as we are fighting side by side. And the North Caucasus people are actually showing their example of how the free people of Russia should react and act now to fight the imperial evil that Russia spreads around the world. Ukrainian victory in this war is the first step and the first most important milestone to achieve everything that we are talking about here today. It is impossible to imagine the decolonization, demilitarization, and denuclearization of Russia without achievement of that important milestone. As Russia now has breached all principles of international law and is using very aggressive rhetoric as to the weapons of mass destruction, the world has to react today. We cannot wait any longer, as if we tolerated the occupation of Crimea, the war in the Donbas, the war in Ichkeria, we cannot tolerate this aggressive rhetoric and breach of the mere essence of our collective security principles and principles of non-proliferation that Russia is demonstrating to the entire world with the atrocity that has never been seen, not even in the Second World War. The technologies of today's war put a bigger pressure on us. And believe me, I just come back here from Konstantinivka, from a town that is some 20 kilometers out of Avdiivka and Bakhmut. And I can tell you that the atrocities that are committed in Bucha are continuing there today. Russia is not leaving anything behind but ashes, ruined lives, and war crimes that are yet to be punished by the international institutions. But in order for us to achieve this result, we have to act accordingly today. We all should unite and not think about whether or not negative consequences inside Russia can happen. It doesn't matter. Until and unless we restore the rule of international law, the world is never going to be safe. And Russian people have to also be ready to pay their share of price for that. If it's going to be at the price of lives of some of the Russian citizens, that's the price to be paid for freedom. And no speculation about it should be made, neither here nor in any other international forum. We should stop fearing to fight the regime. Fighting the regime is always difficult. Ukraine has proven it by two democratic revolutions, confirming with human lives our European choice, the choice that Russia couldn't bear. They couldn't leave it unpunished, that Ukraine could rise against the agents of Kremlin on its own soil and fight them, losing our best sons and daughters in that fight. So they invaded the independent Ukraine, showing to the entire world that they're capable of everything and will not stop at anything to preserve the totalitarian regime and preserve the power of KGB regime. So yes, we will all have to pay this price of tolerating it for many decades or centuries and letting this KGB monster grow just in front of our eyes. But we have to do it in our generation so that our kids don't have to repeat the same fight that we are fighting right now. Our kids in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, in Novorossiysk, in Grozny, in Kiev, in Warsaw, in Rome, in Washington, in Paris, in London. Because the imperial evil never stops, and totalitarian regimes never stop until they are showing force. Because the only language those regimes understand is the language of force. So only military victory over Russia, both in Ukraine and in your own nations, can bring the world this much desired stability and the perspective for us maybe in 10, 15, 20 years together again in a bigger forum and discuss how to build a new economy or how to build new alliances or how to reconstruct the infrastructure of Ukraine, but also the infrastructure of broken Russian cities that have never seen investment in probably 100 years, because all the resources were sucked out to feed the totalitarian ambition of that monster. But that is going to be later. That is not the discussion for today. The only discussion for today is how to win this war, how to win it together, how to divert the resources that Russia is now using in the war in Ukraine, or to support Hamas, to actually create domestic problems, to actually create domestic uprisals against that regime that is killing Russian people as well. Because at the end of the day, Russian sons and daughters are going and dying in this war. And Russian propaganda is convincing them that they're dying for a greater good. I have not heard from any of our partners and allies in the West that they would ever even contemplate a war with Russia. NATO countries and NATO itself was not created to fight Russia. The alliance was created to prevent the war, which unfortunately it was unable to achieve. So I call to all the world and all the nations, free nations of Russia, to stop being in fear of KGB monster. It's mostly the result of our own unwillingness to show our determination to fight until we win. And Russia is playing very well on that. So let's fear no more. You can look at me. I had to join the armed forces when the full-scale invasion started. My kids had to leave the country for security reasons. But I'm standing here in front of you to convey this important message, that fear is our main enemy in this fight. So we fear no more. Ukraine fears no more. The Ukrainian army has proved that Russian army is, what was it, the second strongest in Ukraine? So we have diverted so much of the Russian military machine and internal oppression resources that they had, that now you have the freedom to act. And the world supports us. We can feel it, we know it, we are grateful for it, as we're in it together, for democracy and for our common values. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Buimister. I hope I didn't twist your surname too much. I would just like to pick up on one aspect that you have touched upon when you mentioned international rule of law. I think it's very important what you said, especially because that's how conflicts should be dealt with. And it is important because attached to this concept you have the universality, attached to the rule of law. One of the main ingredients is the universality of human rights. And what we have seen, also from the part of Russia, but also and especially from China, the People's Republic of China, it's an attack on these values, on the universality of human rights, in favor of a relativist approach of human rights, which would then allow the different rulers, authoritarian despots scattered all around the world to subdue their citizens and to use the iron fist at their own will. I think it's a very, very serious matter. It's a very serious attack. Ukraine is at the forefront of this military, social, diplomatic, economic attack, and we all have to stand up to it, and that's why, as you said, we are all together on this. So thank you very much for your words. I don't know if, John, you want to add anything, or then if you have, if there are any questions from the audience, looks like we can then move to the next session.
I just would like to congratulate on Rado that just took the floor. 12 years ago, I was president of the NATO-Ukraine committee within the NATO Parliamentarian Assembly. I'm very happy and very proud that we have such representative today. And your words, you cannot say better. Any one of us could have not say better what you said before. Thank you very much.
And one more, I think that Ludmila's speech, it was such a bridge for our next session, which are about the whole world security, about that everything is insane, and we should understand that evil can't stop by them. It could be stopped if the nation of free world, like alien together, proactive and prevent this evil. So our session C is what should be the response of the states of free world to the de facto existing aliens of authoritarian and totalitarian regimes, Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, Pyongyang aliens, or Russia, Iran, China aliens, and their control satellites like Assad, Hamas, ISIS, Taliban, Lukashenko, Maduro, Hezbollah, and so on. You know, Maduro make for us a news for a week before, and we understand that it's real, the evil exists, so we should do it together, and I have honor that now we have here not only person from Italy, from future independent state of post-Russia, from Ukraine, from Ichkeria, and also we have here people from United States, from Slovakia, from Kazakhstan, and from Manchuria, who we hope also will be independent state, not like a part of PRC. So I have honor to invite dear Janusz Bugajski, Senior Fellow of Jamestown Foundation, Washington, D.C., author of Failed State, A Guide to Russia Rapture book. We have two authors today, Janusz and Juraj, so please.
May
Janusz,
I say
start.
one word, so that it's a thanks. I read the book of Mr. Bugansky. That was the reason that convinced me to send a mail to Oleg, and that was the way we were in touch 1 year ago. So thank you for your inspiring books and your inspiring words that this is the beginning of the involvement of the Italian Parliament. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for those words. And thanks to Oleg. Oleg's gone somewhere. He's at the back. Thanks to Oleg and Taras. Taras hasn't been mentioned, for not only organizing the forum, but developing this forum, expanding its importance around the world. We were together in Tokyo, in London, other places. And thank you to our Italian hosts for being so far-sighted, more far-sighted than many politicians I know in Washington, and for not accepting the status quo with Russia. In other words, as you mentioned in your speech, we have to be creative, we have to be innovative, we have to be imaginative. So, last word before I actually make my remarks, Taras gave me a copy of the Russian version, Russian translation of my book. Poor Taras had to carry a whole bag full of them from Kiev to Rome. They are circulating in Russia, as far as I know.
And here, also here.
Oh, and, yes, there you go. So anybody in the North Caucasus who wants a copy as well will be welcome. Okay, I'm going to focus my remarks, and I'll try and be as brief as possible, on the importance of discussing Russia's rupture. Such discussions, I believe, are extremely valuable to undermine the ideological and political foundations of the International Alliance of Dictators, which is the sort of topic that Oleg said. Let me start by asking whether everyone has noticed that the more we discuss the collapse of the current Russian Empire, the more voices we hear in the West urging us to shut up and be quiet. At least that's what I'm told at times. Some of our alleged Russia and Western security experts want to convince us that we should refrain from advocating systemic change in Russia or the outright disintegration of the failed state. But the reasons they give are not only unconvincing, they are often contradictory, comical, and ultimately counterproductive. So let me give you 3 examples. First, some Russia experts claim that disintegration will definitely not happen, but at the same time they warn us that the world will become more perilous if it does happen. Well, if it won't happen, then why be so fearful that it will happen? Secondly, they claim that we have no power to make disintegration happen, but at the same time they warn us that it is dangerous to even wish for such an outcome. Evidently, wishing can become reality. Hence, there must be something quite powerful in such wishes. And third, they claim that talking about disintegrating Russia actually helps Putin's propaganda in the West. And I hear this from some of the Russian liberals. They differ in many respects, but they keep repeating this line. But if the Kremlin is taking Russia's disintegration seriously, then we should also be closely examining the developments, the scenarios, and the consequences that the Kremlin actually fears. It's not our fear, it's their fear. Fortunately, most of us live in democracies, and the self-appointed pro-Russian security censors will not prevail. I will raise 6 fundamental points, and I'll try and be brief. Cut me off if I'm running too long. I'll raise 6 fundamental points why the question of Russia's dissolution cannot be ignored. It is vitally important for international security to focus our discussions on Russia's rupture and to start preparing to manage for the consequences. First, talking about Russia's demise does not help Putin. Fear about Russia's collapse and arguing for the importance of preserving the Russian imperial state actually helps Putin, much more than talking about its weaknesses, its failures, and its rupture. Sorry, I lost my... 1 second. The Russia continuity argument, I would call it the Russia continuity argument, reinforces the Kremlin myth that Russia is invincible, indestructible, and permanent. And it precludes policy planning, which I think is vital for all future scenarios. We never plan ahead enough in the United States, and it's the same in Europe, in NATO in Europe. Many in the West bought into the Soviet permanence theory. I remember it very well, how one would argue that the Soviet Union is not going to be permanent. And now they continue with the Russian permanence theory. Political fiction, I believe, is a belief that imperialist states are permanent. Analyzing Moscow's numerous failures helps us to prepare Western policy for Russia's dissolution, unlike our lack of preparation for the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Soviet bloc. We need to help our allies to prepare for the consequences. Drawing conclusions from the evidence about Russia's impending collapse does not help the current regime, but exposes the failure of that regime and the state. Second, planning for Russia's rupture is not a distraction from winning the war in Ukraine. I keep hearing about this. This is a new argument that's now being made. In fact, I think it is a core element of Moscow's defeat, precisely because it exposes the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of the Russian state and helps Ukraine and its partners to probe and widen those weaknesses to defeat the empire. You can both defend Ukraine and you can help to manage the consequences of the breakup of the Russian so-called Federation. It is also a psychological morale booster for Ukraine, a nation under threat of genocide. What will be the level of trust among neighbors, particularly Ukraine, in a new Russian leader who poses as a democrat but preserves the current empire while feigning agreements with Kiev or even recognizing its borders while planning for its next imperial resurgence? 3. Discussing Russia's rupture is not wishful thinking. This is another phrase I keep hearing. When I published the book, I was told I'm a wishful thinker. Well, I would call it willful thinking. Actual wishful thinking was the post-Cold War idea of long-term, mutually beneficial relations between the West and Russia, the current Russia. Many believed in this grand illusion for at least 20 years, and some still do. More wishful thinking is exhibited in the notion that a handful of liberals and Democrats, either in prison or in exile, can transform the empire into a democracy. We had other wishful thinking on display at the start of the Yeltsin, Putin, and Medvedev presidencies. I remember well how those who questioned the survival of the USSR were dismissed as wishful thinkers. Well, what about the wishful thinking? Put Medvedev as a great pragmatist, somebody that we could work with. This has become the most, even before Putin's statement, this has become the most blatant, open imperialist and pro-genocidist. Or those who pointed out after Putin was installed in power that Russia was engaged in a new imperial drive. They were dismissed as Russophobes. Okay, me included. Point 4, focusing on Russia's demise does not provoke Moscow or escalate conflict. The Kremlin claims that the West wants to destroy Russia regardless of actual US policy. It's quite comical, really. The regime's survival is based on stoking fear and conflict irrespective of Western policy. And I point this out to our policy people. The more you deny that you want to break up Russia, the more Moscow will assert there is a secret plan to do that, to destroy the empire. And I also point out, Western leaders spent 20 years trying to convince Russian leaders that NATO is not a threat. Now, where did that get us? Where did that get us? Nowhere. It is better to state clearly what the West supports in Russia: democracy, pluralism, federalism, national and regional self-determination, and independence for those republics and regions that want it, to finally and firmly break with Moscow. Fifth, talking about Russia's rupture actually helps to counter Kremlin disinformation and conspiracy myths. I don't call them theories, because theory gives it credibility. Conspiracy myths. Basically, we have nothing to hide. What does the West have to hide? Openly declared support for democracy and federalism, the rights of republics and regions to determine their status, their autonomy, their sovereignty, their statehood, can help embolden citizens and demonstrate that they are not isolated in the world stage, despite Moscow's oppressive and isolationist policies. And as you said, sometimes you have to fight for this. Why should we be ashamed of these fundamental principles of social coexistence? Avoiding such talk demonstrates fear of authoritarianism and imperialism rather than resistance against it. Last point, 6, discussing Russia's rupture helps Russia's citizens. Instead of avoiding the subject, the outside world has many mechanisms to better inform Russian citizens about the importance of de-imperialization and the benefits of either genuine federalism or the formation of new states that can forge peaceful relations with neighbors. Supporting self-determination gives hope to citizens. Otherwise, it looks like the Western and Eastern democracies have abandoned them, and they will face years of war, repression, impoverishment, and international isolation. You have to give them some sort of hope, and I believe Russia's rupture is that very hope. So lastly, very last point, I would say fear of discussion, avoidance or dismissal of certain topics, or trying to silence others is no way to conduct or advise policy making or to plan for the future. The brave new world beckons the bold and innovative thinkers and will leave the real Russophobes, those that actually fear Russia, a long way behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bugajski. Bugajski. Okay, Bugajski. Thank you very much for your insightful speech and for your presentation. I would like now to call on Juraj Mezic, right?
It's hard for Italian to speak Slovenic last name, yeah. Mezic and Bugajski.
Independent global challenges and risk analyst, please.
Thank you very much. Before I start, allow me to express my, and I'm sure that also the others, thanks to you organizers, Gianni, Matteo, and Oleg, a standing star of the fora, for your hard work. It's, well, we must appreciate it on each occasion. In scholarly manners, I prepared a PowerPoint presentation. I apologize for that, but for some people it's useful to see things. If you can make it a bigger picture, yep, that's it. I call my presentation Cure of Learned Helplessness because I think that this is what we are experiencing in the West. This is a kind of autoimmune disease. We have all possible resources to support Ukraine, to defeat Russia in a quick manner, to liberate oppressed nations of Northern Eurasia, but we in the West do not do it. Oh, lovely. We do not do it because we learned to be helpless. Just a few examples of you may remember this guy. He's a former president of United States of America, George Bush, the older one, who on August 1st, 1991, he made his best to preserve unity of Soviet Union when at the Kiev Rada, well, Ukrainian Rada in Kiev, asked Ukrainian communists, because he did not meet with the leaders of national movement, to keep together with this great country of yours, meaning Soviet or Russian Empire. Well, he was not the first doing the same thing. In the history of my country, Czechoslovakia, in 1938, my grandparents experienced the Munich betrayal, where and when French and British prime ministers decided to bow and let Hitler to have what he wanted to have. They chose shame and they got War II, said a little bit later Winston Churchill, who was forced to deal with the mess they created. We don't need to go too so deep into history. Again, much more recent things. We see that similar behavior demonstrated by the recent leaders of Western world. And the question is whether this is only the mice phenomenon alone. Mice meaning money, well, money certainly. This George Schroeder, he's corrupt to his bones, yeah? Ideology, sure, for President Obama, ideology of America being weak and retreating from the history, that's his philosophy of life, of philosophy of America. Coercion, I skipped the coercion possibility, but there is another American president where coercion could play a role. And then we have, of course, ego, important part in this behavior of Western leaders, which is, I think, demonstrated on the third picture. These politicians are building on some common narratives, and those common narratives, they accept the common narratives and they repeat them. And well, what were these predictions built on in February 22? US concerned Kyiv could fall to Russia within days. And that's CNN, yeah? The exclusive from the, I think it was some Time or no, the second one. I forgot which medium it is. Anyhow, an important American medium. Exclusive, US expect Kyiv to fall in days as Ukraine source warns of encirclement. And a very recent one from Washington Post from December 4th, just a few days old. Miscalculations, divisions mark offensive planning by US, Ukraine. Yeah. These people, these journalists, they were predicting quick fall of Ukraine, and they stick to the narrative. When the reality did not confirm their expectations, they are repeating them again in December. It's the same people repeating the same narrative again and again and again. Now, the history of failures of this, what I called unholy alliance of Western analysts, media, and politicians. A few points on that matter. The first enemy of knowledge is what we believe to know. It's not what we do not know, but what we believe we know. And there was, in the Soviet times, the Sovietology, plenty of Sovietology professorships who completely failed to anticipate collapse of communism in Europe in 1989, and then collapse of Soviet Union in 1991, or their predecessors failed to anticipate Hitler's behavior in 1938. There is simply a school of thought in West which, and Janusz was talking about it, so I probably do not need to repeat it. There are large number of influential people who build their academic analytic careers on basically preaching to eternity of Russian Empire. Well, then we have a media. And the media, one of the media problems is that the bad news do not sell media, good news are no news. The news for media are bad news, and therefore they are urged to publish these kind of pessimistic views, and they ignore plenty of optimistic news, which are. I mean, Russia is breaking apart. It is economically in the advanced. It is being demilitarized quickly. Many myths on which Russian Empire is built are being broken. But they do not report about it. They report about the problems in, the fronts of in Ukraine, where the expectations were not met, let's say. Yeah. And then we have a fundamental problem with the democracy, with the functioning of democracy, and it is that to not act is preferred mode of democratic politicians. To act may upset voters. To act means taking the risk. And therefore, the most convenient strategy is to sit through the crisis and keep justifying status quo. And that's what they do, what our leaders in the Western countries tend to do. Well, commitment to old knowledge is not absolute. In recent times, Janusz is writing about something very different. But in 1969, a Russian historian, Andrei Amalrik, wrote a book about upcoming collapse of Soviet Union. It was even translated, Will Soviet Union Survive Until 1984? He wrote it in 1969, when the Soviet Union was on the top of its power. They were a space-going country. Americans were, behind or just getting equal in the space exploration. They just suppressed the revolution in Czechoslovakia in 1968, with some invasion of 500,000 soldiers and so on. Here, he saw it. He saw it coming, but not the Western analysts. A Russian historian in Russia was able to see what's going on. But from the Western perspective, he was, the Western analyst's perspective, he was a kind of exotic guy who, he's writing about the wishful thinking. Well, he was only, 7 years wrong, which from the historical perspective is he was very exact. Now, our commitment to old knowledge. Global Firepower Index in 2023, second strongest army in the world is Russian army, and it's 0.002 weaker than American army. It's a total, pardon my French, bullshit. But they repeat it now in 2023, and this is quoted in mass media because the Global Firepower Index is there, and it's a big name. It's a total nonsense. But through this analytical kind of work, the Western politicians are led to believe that they are facing a big, powerful bear. Well, commitment to old knowledge is also our fears of nuclear annihilation, which Russia can cause. Despite the fact that Russian nuclear facilities can be eliminated by precision and conventional strikes. We know that now. I mean, the Ukrainian army, with their limited material and technological resources, was able to attack nuclear airport. Yeah, with the strategic bombers. Yeah, where is it? Oh, somewhere in Volga. Forget the name. And do we really believe that Muscovites are ready to die for, let's say, Kamchatka or Norilsk? Seriously? These billionaires who control that country? Not. But we love to believe that. Another commitment to old knowledge, well, these are two charts which show deterioration of Russian space flights since Anschluss of Crimea. It's completely ignored by Western media and public. The most of Europeans and Americans still believe that the Russians are big space power. But it's deteriorating very quickly and very significantly, while American and, I have to admit, Chinese role in space exploration is growing. This is just one parameter, number of flights. Yeah? There are many others in which, like the number of satellites or the deep space research, in which Russia is not a player at all. Yeah? They are just sending some rockets, few rockets a year, because they still have supplies and they use technology which was developed in 1970s. So, you know, that's the reality. But we, the West, keep loving Potemkin's villages of Russian greatness and power because it enables our leaders to do nothing, even with this genocide. Vis-a-vis genocide in Chechnya, vis-a-vis genocide in Ukraine today. Well, doing nothing like justify for the West not to get prepared for the upcoming disintegration of Russia. We failed after 1991, we, the West, failed, and nothing happened. Except genocide in Chechnya, Ukraine, and nuclear and missiles proliferation to Iran and North Korea, and arming Hamas, Hezbollah, and so on. But voters do not pay attention to that, so it's like nothing happened. Yeah. Now the map which is there is my hypothetical map of the disintegration of Russia, which is in this book. Which please, I brought 30 copies of it. Be so kind, take of them, they are back there. You may find there some useful, productive ideas when you think about how to approach what is coming. And I believe this is the last slide. So what should be our response, the response of the free world to alliance of authoritarian regimes and their satellites? Well, we have to start with treating our immune deficiency, our own failures. We are facing the enemies who are much weaker in many sense, but our disease, our immunocompromised status makes us weak. Well, the keystone of this alliance is Russian Empire. Dealing with it is also the lowest hanging fruit. To deal with China and the Arab world crisis is much more difficult to deal with than to deal with Russia. To deal with alliance of authoritarian regime, we must first deal with unholy alliance of our commitment to obsolete knowledge, to media bias, and politicians conveniently committed to status quo. And the mice syndrome too, of course. We need to trigger debate. Well, that's what we are trying, but we need to move ahead with it. Trigger debate about disintegration of Russia among the elites in the West, in the European Union countries, in America, Japan in particular. We need to design process and parameters of managed disintegration condition of Russia, conditions for recognition of new states. And I'm proposing to have something like was Paris Peace Conference of 1919 to hold it in Kiev next year. And we need to start to build capacities for independence of new states of Northern Eurasia, which already heard, we already heard calls for doing this. Well, and indeed, it all starts with winning the war in Ukraine, and that's what we must support by all our possibilities. Thank you very much for your attention, and Slava Ukraini!
Dear Uri, thank you for your presentation. Please, everybody, if you are interested, take the book of Uri. It's really like books of Janusz, very interesting. I think it's 2 books, should be read by everybody if you're interested in post-Russian space. And probably this peace conference could be not in Kyiv, but in Yalta or in Sevastopol. I think the place Sevastopol is a great place to finish Russian Empire because they have some myth about the city. So we hope to make this Yalta 2-0. And we continue. Our next speaker is William Ivanov, who is quite not Ivanov, like you could know, because it's people from Manchuria, and because of the security reason, William couldn't have speech on his real last name. So William representative, he is a member of the Congress of Manchuria, leader of the National Party of Manchuria, artist, and when we are speaking about the free Northern Eurasia, we should understand that we have the last empire in Europe, it's so-called Russian Federation, and we have the one more empire in the East Asia, is People's Republic of China. So, William, you're welcome.
Thank you. What if someone's named as your compatriots, but they look like the enemy, sound like the enemy, act like the enemy, and also think like the enemy? What of them? They are so-called the enemies. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm William Ivanov of Manchuria. Now, I want to talk about how if someone from the enemy country to pretend as your compatriots. This is not a speculation. It already occurred a lot to in Manchuria. Have you ever seen this flag? This flag is of the fake Manchukuo. The Manchukuo was a fascismal dynasty of Manchuria, historic, which was a puppet by the Empire of Japan during the Second World War. But nowadays, there's a lot of Chinese people that take this flag of the fascismal Manchukuo to pretend we're Manchurian. Why Chinese people would like to use this flag? Some of them just want to stigmatize that with the stories of Manchuria. They want to say, you say you are Manchurian, that means you maybe support the fascism of Manchukuo. It means you are a fascist. This is what they want. And another motivation is that maybe the Chinese people, they really want to restore the fascism of fake Manchukuo in the modern Manchuria. That is because the fake Manchukuo was forced to sign something called the Joint Declaration between Japan, Manchuria, and China. These crazy things shows that there's no immigration between China and Manchuria. It's borderless. The people who live in Manchuria is Manchurian. The people who live in China is the Chinese. This is what the Chinese people want. With these things, they can smuggle to Manchuria infinity and to influence Manchurian culture, instead to the Chinese culture, and to control Manchurian media. Finally, they can found a Chinese-styled Manchuria. No matter even if one day Manchuria is not a part of China anymore, the Chinese people would like to still have a Chinese Manchurian government. This is what they want with this flag. They look like Chinese people, sound like Chinese people, act like Chinese people, and think like Chinese people. But they say, we are all Manchurians with this flag of the fascismal flag of the fake Manchukuo. And as we Manchurians, we will never ever accept this to occur. That is what I want to share with you, the stories from the whole world. When we Manchurian accept someone into our organization, the most important thing is to identify. Is a Manchurian or a Chinese wanna pretend. But for us, it's very easy. By the language, the outlooking, and also the attitude to the traditional Chinese culture, especially to the language. The Chinese people, they wanna pretend Manchuria so much that they tried their best to learn our language, the Mandarin, for the last more than 100 years. Mandarin is not a typical like Chinese language. It's a kind of Manchurian language. They try their best to learn it in the last more than 100 years and fired. And this also to be the way we protect ourselves, protect our country, and also protect our allies. And also the way to promise that we new Manchuria will never be a fascism country anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, William. When you told us about the history of modern Manchurian, like PRC regime tried to make all people who fighting for independence fascism or something like this. Probably we in Ukraine know, like they call us Banderivci, Mazepinci and other, because they say that we don't have our language, our culture, and we are all Russian, and probably people from Buryatia, from Ichkeria know what we mean for Ingushetia. So this regime in Beijing do such Moscow regime in Kremlin done. So they like a brother and they try to kill free nation. So probably we should have communication from your nation with other free nation of Eurasia, because we have the same evils that try to kill democracy and liberal world. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have honor to introduce the next speaker. It's Alexei Hancharenko. He is a member of Parliament Ukraine. Also, Alexei is a Vice President Committee of Migration, Refugees and Displaced Person of the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe. Please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to organizers for great possibility to be with you. I was with you several times online. And finally, I remember that moment when you were in Japan, I think, and I was in Liman, which is on the front line in Ukraine, and I joined you from there. And I think it was important because what's going on in Liman, what's going on now in Avdiivka, what's going on now on the left bank of Dnieper River is something which will define the future of the world for next decades. And that's something which is happening right now in Ukraine. You know, the topic is what we should do with this authoritarian axis of evil that we see today in the world. And my answer is very clear. We need to make not declarations, but tanks. Not declarations, but drones. Not declarations, but missiles. Because the only thing all these authoritarian regimes understand is the power. The only thing. And do we really have this power today? Let us be frank, because I hear, you know, I'm sorry, maybe I will be a little bit sober in here, because I hear here again, you know, next year we will have a conference in Yalta. I would be happy too, but I'm not sure that it will happen. And we need to be frank when we are speaking, because we've heard it in Ukraine. This summer in Yalta, it didn't happen. Because what we have today is a great problem with the Western countries which lost their hard power, many of them. UK army is the smallest from the Napoleonic times. Just today there was an article in Wall Street Journal which says that France has less than 90 pieces of artillery, That is a number which Russia loses in Ukraine in 1 week. Germany, Wall Street Journal says, has the ammunition stocks enough for 2 days of a big conventional war. It's Germany. So what army in the whole Europe can protect the region and can stop Russians? That is Ukrainian army. And that's what we are doing today. Definitely we have also US army. But the main army, the biggest army in European continent today is Ukrainian army. And that is the biggest asset. And when I hear all these discussions about Ukraine, should be a member of NATO or not, I think many forgot that it's not just Ukraine. We desperately need to become a member of NATO. We need security. But NATO also needs us. And that is absolutely mutually beneficial. But I heard again today here, just moments ago, Russian army, second army in the world, and it's, we are smiling about this now. I will not smile so wide. I think if Russian army really was not the second largest and strongest army in the world 2 years ago, they are quickly learning. Now, they are battle hardening right now. Tell me what armies in the world have a battle experience of 21st war. It's just 2 armies in the world. Of big war, of modern warfare, it's just Ukraine and Russia. And that is a huge threat for all of us. So we can't be, asleep, feeling that, okay, Putin showed he's not so strong. Because many people, they don't care about Ukraine, let us be frank. They don't care about Chechnya, Ichkeria, they don't care about Tatarstan, they don't care about these nations. They think, okay, if Putin is so weak, he is not a real threat for us, so we can continue to ignore this threat, how it was happening for years. And that's something which I want now to ring the bells. Russia is now much more dangerous than it was 2 years ago. Much more dangerous, because their army is battle hardened, because their economy is on war footage, because there is no more constraints for Russia. They don't care about international law. They don't care about any sanctions, because unfortunately they decided that they survived sanctions. The big question is why the sanctions are so weak. It's another story for another big conference. But the fact is Russia survived the sanctions. In the third quarter they have plus 5% in their economy. It doesn't look as an economical disaster, really. And that's what's happening right now. And tell me now, what will happen? Let us imagine the next future, the next months, the next years. So hostilities in Ukraine finish in some way. If Russia will continue to control substantial part of Ukraine, that will mean that Putin will be emboldened. And tell me, please, after this, will Putin come back to peaceful life? Will he take these hundreds of thousands of people back to Moscow? Never. He will start a new war. The next victims could be Kazakhstan, Georgia, Armenia. He will not start with Article 5 countries. He will start with other neighbors without Article 5. But after this, if he will be again successful, he will try Article 5, sooner or later. And that is a clear way to nuclear war. So I'm not smiling right now. Because Ukraine we are bleeding every day in very severe way. It's very difficult what we have today in our country. And the only way to act today is to stop Russians now. That's my address to the West, that's my address to the civilized world. But that is my address also to colonized nations of Russian Federation. Because in reality I see that many of them are waiting for Ukrainian victory to become free. I'm sorry, this will not happen like this. This will not happen like this. Now you have unique window of opportunities. Chechens, Avars, Ingushi, Tatari, Buryati, all nations. You have unique window of opportunities. Yes, Russia is very much involved in Ukraine. Their best forces are there. But this window of opportunities is closing on our eyes. And the moment half year ago, Russia was much weaker. And if half year ago something would start in Caucasus region, That could be the end of Russia. Still it is possible. What will be in 1 year, I don't know. I am not telling you, I am not one of those who are saying, oh, Russia will exist forever. No, Russian Federation definitely will disappear. Definitely this is a kind of a zombie empire. The problem of Russian Empire, we are now in Rome. What was the strength of Roman Empire? Watch this. We are here in the hall where we have a column, probably from Roman times. That is the strength of empire. Why? Because Roman Empire, Pax Romana, they were giving something to the world. They did not even need legions to come, because they were giving civilization to many nations, and by these they were expanding. The main problem of Russian Empire is that they are not giving anything. They are not, even Soviet Union was given at least the idea of some social justice, of some new world and new human. What Russia is selling? Strange mix and cocktail of Stalinism, Orthodox Church, and Putin's craziness and conspirology. So definitely, this empire will fall apart. But the question is when. And it's not that it will happen tomorrow or in 1 year. That can happen in 10 years, in 15 years. But these 10 or 15 years will be years of incredible and awful suffering of millions and millions of people, including those who are Russian citizens today. So that's my address. Yes, we need not to be afraid of Russia. We need to be strong enough to deal with Russia. But we also should not be in kind of a wishful thinking that Russia appeared to be so weak that we don't need to make anything and just wait, that they will collapse and the world will be happier. This will not happen this way. Or we will act, or we will do what we can, or nothing will happen. They will destroy next nations, and they can do this. They can wipe out new ethnicities from the map of the world, which is absolutely, that would be a catastrophe for all of us. So I address to you, I ask you to be sober enough. I address to you that we need to stop this monster right now. And this is the best moment, and this moment is bought by thousands of lives of Ukrainians who are fighting today courageously for their country, but not only for ourselves, but for all of you. Thank you very much.
Otsi, thank you for your speech. I could not add something because, of course, time is very important. Every day is hundreds of lives, and we should, of course, this empire will fall, but like you say, it's very important when, because every day is very matter and how it become. So it's not just not give something, this empire take everything from lives, they take resources, they take cities and everything. So hope together we could make the second, third, 10th front inside this empire, and uprising will help to win the free world and Ukraine also. And we have our next speaker. It's our great friend of our platform. She will speak online because she can't come. She's in Strasbourg. It's the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland. She in 2006-2007, she's head of Chancellor of the President of Poland. In 2007-2008, she's member of Polish Sejm, 7th convocation, and she's still member of European Parliament from Poland, 6th and 8th convocation. It is Mrs. Anna Fotyga. Mrs. Anna Fotyga, do you hear us? Our technical issues, could you make the translation from Zoom to our screen? Our colleagues should be ready. They said that everything's okay. She's online. It will be online speech. Now, when we are waiting for the technical moments, I think this very interesting session C, and we have probably some questions. We have time after the Mrs. Anna Fotyga speech. If you have some question, please up your hand and we'll discuss. I see it, Itay, here. Sorry? After the speech, probably, yeah.
Thank you very much. I have a very short question to Gianni. Gianni, now you main representative West and the great Roman Empire here. The main, not nobody. 850 years ago, Imperator Roman Emperor Mark Aurelius tell was, who is not risk it much more. Please, could you explain for the West this question, this idea? Just one.
I don't understand.
I just
Frankly
question to you, please ask and repeat this. For the was Mark Aurelius tell 1,850 years ago, who not risks much more.
I understand. Yeah, who does not risk much more. But by the way, I agree. We are not very we are not very familiar. Well, we are familiar about the Roman Empire, but that's really that very strong narrative is not so any more popular, frankly speaking, in Italy. But anyway, I agree. That was said by many of you, probably also Yanis Bugansky. So to status quo is not the option. Status quo is not the option. So there are risks. Our Ukrainian friends are taking huge risk every day. 100,000 women, men, young, middle-aged people going to the front line. So they're taking risks not only for themselves, they're taking risks also for our freedom, our democracy, our guarantee, our security. So I think that's the point. So there is no reason to preserve the status quo. And also there are too many Chamberlain around Europe. If you wanna make some let's say historical comparison. So too many people that think that the appeasement with dictatorship will guarantee stability, will guarantee prosperity, could guarantee development. That's not true. The status quo in many cases, so the appeasement with dictators and regimes only led to disaster, only led to wars and instability worldwide. So I really think I totally agree, we need to take our risk. And also, what I said before in my opening speech, we need to be a little bit more innovative and creative. So we have to really try to go a little away from the consolidated path. I mean, we have to seek new opportunity. I think there is opportunity. I also appreciate also the last speech of the Member of Parliament of the Rada of Ukraine, and basically saying that there is huge risk, still is not clear how the time frame of the fall of the Russian Empire. So but in this moment, in this context, there are opportunity, and this opportunity also could open new way, new path from the captive nation in the Russian Federation. I think that is something we have to take. And time is of the essence. So now is the time to take the action and to take the initiative. By the way. We give the floor to the member of the European Parliament, Anna Fotyga.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm speaking from Strasbourg, where we just started the plenary session of the European Parliament. Allow me to remark.
Madam Fotyga, we can't hear you. Yeah, maybe you are on mute.
Okay. We have.
No. Now, try now.
Hello?
Okay.
Do you hear me? Okay.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon from Strasbourg, the plenary session of the European Parliament. I'm sorry not to be able to travel to meet you personally, but I would like to contribute also to this very important debate. For many years already, persons engaged in international relations used to monitor increasing cooperation and consolidation of autocratic regimes, in particular Russian Federation led by Vladimir Putin, but actually it's not only him. We think that the problem with Russian elites is more and more visible when we look into internal political scene, in particular after full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia on the 24th of February 2022. We used, in particular countries of Central and Eastern Europe, Poland and myself, to warn the collective West about increasing aggressive posture of Russian Federation against neighbors, but also actually meddling all over the world and building quite successfully alliances on other continents, being it via Cuba and Venezuela, other countries in Latin America, in numerous countries of Africa, by political means, but also using mercenaries, in particular Wagner groups, to compromise and destabilize political scenes of numerous African countries. Also acting against major Western players like, for example, France and others. We also saw for many years already increasing cooperation between Russian Federation and Iran, also regimes in North Korea, and in particular with PRC. In numerous documents, NATO, a new NATO strategic concept, also several months earlier in the report of NATO Reflection Group on political reform of NATO, we used to indicate the increasing role of hostile regimes in undermining stability of the collective West. And here we indicate Russian Federation predominantly posing the direct threat to Western alliance, NATO in particular, but also to the EU and meddling in variety of regions, as well as increasing assertiveness, also increasing authoritarian ways within the PRC. We used to consider PRC as considerably peaceful country, eventually trying to increase influence by economic means. Now we monitor the constant military threat against Taiwan, undermining the agreed median line in Taiwan Strait, trying to eradicate the island in many areas of international presence. For example, also in such reasonable place and as WHO and in the role of observer. The consolidation of this autocratic axis started to be more than visible after full-scale invasion of Ukraine and clear in voting at the level of the UN General Assembly of resolutions condemning Russian Federation for the act of aggression. It is the problem started to be even higher when we saw the and when we observed this year's terrorist attack by Hamas against Israel, and very destabilizing influence of this conflict, this aggression, also on the functioning of internal political and public scenes in variety of countries, including EU member states. There are numerous demonstrations and protests of communities supporting the Palestinian community, as well as acts of aggression, clearly speaking, acts of anti-Semitism as well, acts of aggression against Israel. Moreover, our Ukrainian colleagues, brothers, rightly consider this situation as quite dangerous because they see certain fatigue within the international community of having to divide the attention between support, assistance, both in kind, humanitarian, political, and military, to many areas of conflict. I would like to say that I agree with Joe Biden here in this respect, that both areas are emanation of the same problem, same issue, the aggressive posture of authoritarian regimes trying to diversify this attention of the West. Unfortunately, we cannot afford strategic sequencing as suggested in earlier documents of a variety of international institutions. We have to approach threats and challenges wherever and whenever they appear, and not only in protesting or that Russia waged against Ukraine is of existential nature to the whole world. Actually, it tends to destabilize institutions of the West, and therefore we have to maintain utmost effort to support Ukraine in combating the aggressor. We have to work, as we do actually, over political divisions, to constantly work to establish credible system of bringing those responsible for both crime of aggression and war crimes. I'm absolutely convinced that also crimes against humanity perpetrated by Russia in Ukraine to justice. In a similar way, we cannot afford to change attitudes against acts of terrorism and terrorism against innocent people, and therefore actions. It's no surprise that Hamas leadership used to visit Moscow so frequently before and in the course of aggression against Israel. I'm also convinced that, like in many places in Africa that are kept silent actually in some places of the world, including my region, civilians and kids have been used for a long time as life shields for terrorists. We have once more to evoke our consolidation and will and ability to combat, not only to condemn, to decisively combat increasing terrorism. Actually, there are well-known, years-known rules in dealing with terrorist organization. I am afraid of actually, I would say, legitimizing them by international community in order to buy temporary peace or temporary I wouldn't like to use the word ceasefire here, but I mean that to be somehow convinced about possibility to have quiet periods. But I'm sure that in case of aggressor like Russia and in case of terrorists, any negotiated deal leads to further atrocities, possibly elsewhere, but also in same places that happen ever. We have, unfortunately, to act simultaneously in all areas of threat. And I'm afraid that we face very difficult and very unstable period of time ahead. So many experts already say that the Third World War is there. I would like to frighten people or to use too harsh words, but simply we have to be very firm and very decisive in opposing authoritarian regimes as well.
Thank you.
As silent accomplices like Lukashenko, the Belarusian usurper acting to the benefit of Kremlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anna. Thank you for your speech.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fatiga. Now I would like to give the floor to my friends and the Senator Giulio Terzi. That is, I invite him, and it was very instrumental and crucial his support for having possible this initiative. Giulio, I just let me say some words. Giulio Terzi has been a diplomat for many, many years, and we worked together for quite some time at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's been Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, and currently is a senator and president of the European Union Commission of the Senate of the Republic. He's a champion on fighting autocracies, regime, and advocating for human rights, and is really very important interlocutor for, I think, for the job you're doing, for the activities you're promoting. Senator Terzi.
Thank you very much, my dear friend Gianni, Matteo, and really my best respect. Congratulations for this great initiative. Thank you for choosing Rome and Berlin, but I'm speaking especially for Rome because it is a sense of recognition of what the Italians, the Italian parliament, the Italian government, the Italian majority in government, and many, many people in this country feel about freedom, or worst, unfortunately, lack of freedom in Russia means, and what freedom and the need of freedom, sustaining, fighting for freedom in any possible way outside Russia, as in Russia, what is needed, and what the Italians feel, most of the Italians, I would say. And Gianni Vernetti he was my boss a number of years ago. He's much younger than I am, but still he was my boss. Question the history of parallel careers that develop in human history. But that, by the way, is very hot here. I don't know whether I'm just jumping. Is there possible to the technical persons, is possible to maybe to reduce the temperature, because perhaps it's here, and imagine that this is exactly to become the hot air is focused on the speaker, perhaps, or I mean in the wrong situation. But no, I'm sorry for this interjection. And I'm sorry of being so late in attending these works and this LPR session of this great initiative, the 9th session of your Post-Russia Forum. Congratulations to Oleg Magayevsky for leading this initiative, this session, and I would like to really wish you the best success and congratulate you for what you have achieved and what we are doing. In a way, the reason I am so late, I would have attended really, was extremely interested in being here with you and listen to all the speakers. But the reason I was late are strictly connected in many senses to your work, to our work together for freedom and for what is happening in Europe, in the heart of Europe, which is the war in Ukraine. And the destabilizing forces that President Putin and his acolytes tend to unleash in Europe, among our democratic societies. The Kremlin is trying to destabilize through a number of persons, through a number of organizations, we know very well, through disinformation, through media, in the media environment, in the economic environment, and during the Cold War, there was a definition for those who were too close to the Soviets, and they were called useful idiots. Now they're only useful. because maybe there are not so many idiots, but there are so many interested persons and organizations and groups and even political forces in our democratic societies, which are prone to bow, to accept, to buy Putin's propaganda, and to play in the hands of these people in the imperial dreams that they have, or restoring not as much as a Tsar kingdom and empire, which in the sense was very tough on many minorities, but there was a culture, a European culture of humanity as well in those 19th and 17th centuries a manifestation of history in Russia, a great culture with people of outstanding moral values. But now is not even, it is even a shame to call it an imperial Russia now. Because it's a Russia which has gone through the horrific devastation of the Soviet regimes. It has expanded through a scientific indoctrination, repression, and exclusion of all the ethnic minorities wherever it is needed, even religions, and especially the freedom of belief. Freedom of belief, of political orientation, political understanding, and affiliation to parties which are connected to free democracies. And in saying this, that what we are witnessing as European, it is the war against Ukraine has been in a way coordinated in a very nefarious and worrisome way with other conflict. And what was just said by what was the colleague, I would like to call her because it was in a very important position, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the European Parliament, in the Polish political environment, and Fotyga, who spoke before me, and they quote a number of concepts in her exposé which are very interesting. She was talking about the connection between all these geopolitical upheavals that we are witnessing. And they are there. She mentioned, Anna Fotyga, the speech delivered a few weeks ago by President Putin, by said, a very important concept that I think it cannot be denied in any possible way. The concept is the dictatorial regime, autocratic regime, and terrorists must be stopped as early as possible in their criminal behaviors. Because if we do not do that, and we are not capable of doing that, the moment they will be able to take ground, and they will sense that they are winning, at that very moment, their dreams of imperialism and their dreams of even genocidal attacks against other people, other religions, other countries, other nations, continue to grow, and they are expanded, and they are reinforced. So in that sense was what was just said in the previous intervention. I could subscribe to it entirely. We are living through two fought wars in the Middle East and in Europe, which are one on the basis of the opportunity which was felt by the other parties which are moving the other war, in the sense that there's been a clear connection between the feeling that Putin and these people were imagining that the Western countries were becoming weaker because of Ukraine, and that was the temptation which was exploited by Iran with far away support, but not too far away political support by China, by the Chinese Communist Republic. And that was, in fact, a movement, a geopolitical turmoil, earthquake, which moved in connection, in a leg in connection with the other. So the European war is the Middle Eastern war, and they are connected. And maybe there will be other explosion in other parts of the world because of this sense of weakness that Putin and also the Iranian leadership has registered. There has been their own evaluation. But that evaluation is profoundly wrong because the Western countries, the Atlantic community, the European Union are closing their ranks, and they've been reacting for more than 22 months now. And they've been reacting very effectively. They have established a clear line of common political will, and they are reiterating this political will at every possible occasions in the G7, in the meeting of the North Atlantic Council, and the European Council. And that mentioning why I was late now. I was late exactly because with a number of colleagues I was discussing exactly the same elements. What should be the position of the Italian Parliament and let's say the governmental majority represented in Parliament? What should be the position vis-à-vis on the matter of Ukraine, on the matter of Middle East, on other matters which are related to these issues? And it is not a mystery that the next European Council is a complicated step for the European Union, as it is complicated the decision which is going to be taken by the American Congress concerning financing and the support. The 360 degrees wide support by the United States to Ukraine for its defense and its needs, all its needs, military, humanitarian, economic, financial needs, as it is for Europe. But at the end, that will be the decision, because the political will is there, notwithstanding the technicalities, the difficulties, the alliances that we have to continue to take. And this has been the great failure of President Putin and the allied that are with him, including the Iranians. The failure has been that the Euro-Atlantic community is stronger than ever it has been, militarily, economically. The record of the growth rate, the unemployment, the technological advancement, and the military capabilities, the joining of important countries like Sweden and Finland in the ranks of NATO, notwithstanding the problems with Sweden, but we know very well that the cooperation with the Atlantic Alliance is already very effective and strong. All these elements would never have been possible without the tragedies that Ukraine, an European free democratic country, is facing. And therefore, Putin has already lost vis-à-vis the opponent, the adversary that he has chosen, a war of choice in the most derogatory term. It has already lost in creating a geopolitical situation that he had completely mistaken with all the capacity of the chess players in the great strategies in Kremlin of occupying Kiev in a matter of hours. It has lost in the sense that he has completely miscalculated the economic, technological, scientific consequences of what he was doing. And he was completely mistaken in the not foreseeing coming the capacity of Western countries to attract an enormous push of new allies. Forget the fact that, no, I don't forget, but I don't overvalue, I don't emphasize the value that there are many countries in the so-called South or the BRICS and plus, the BRICS plus group that are not voting against the war of aggression in Ukraine. But the fact that even among those who have not voted against and who have not voted in favor of the UN General Assembly resolution condemning for the aggression and asking the withdrawal of Russian forces, there are many who are inclined to be on the side of the Euro-Atlantic community. And there are a number of circuits, a number of networks which have been established, which have a very significant importance for the global security. Let's talk about the Quad in the Indo-Pacific, the AUKUS, all the and other informal groupings which are active in the defense industry and in the political and military cooperation. And therefore, this is a fight that it has to be continued, and I'm pretty confident that the next European Council will ratify whatever has been ratified in the past and will come up with the proper solution to continue the engagement of the 27 countries in Europe and to be an active part in the North Atlantic Alliance, in the G7 and the other fora. I've expanded a little bit too much given the hour on this aspect, but I would like only to conclude about a close remark on human rights in Russia and Belarus, and should say in Iran and in China. But let's focus on the Russian Federation. Today's Le Monde, you open page 2, there is a horrible story about psychiatric hospitals in Russia, coming back to the habits and practices of psychiatric hospitals in the Stalinist era, where every dissident was liable to be taken just for having mentioned under a cup of coffee or vodka, or a glass of vodka, having mentioned that maybe the regime was not the best in the world, and it was easily taken for a psychiatric visit if somebody had ever deferred him to some acquaintance or some people who could be very dangerous. And it was very easy to be put in a psychiatric hospital. That is the reality today also, according to this interesting report of, I'm mentioning just this question, but also the question of abduction of children, the question of political prisoners, which are practically made disappeared by their people, by the police or the jail institutions. It is a story also that of these last few hours that Navalny practically is disappeared. Is not in contact with his supporters, has been not in contact for a number of days, and there are a lot of worries that the situation could go out of control. Also in monitoring where he is and what are his conditions. So I'm just mentioning these few cases to show you that there is a high sensitivity here in our countries about respect for human rights in these dire situations which characterize the Russian Federation today, and for which your fight is our fight on the side of this table. Please let us be connected and to work together with, in truth, transparency, and with a lot of motivation to fight for freedom. Thank you.
Thank you again, Senator Terzi. I just want to add one word only, just to give you a news, quite important news. Thanks to Senator Giulio Terzi and also bipartisan efforts that we promoted together, a few days ago, Italy withdrew from the Memorandum of Understanding of the Belt and Road Initiative. I think this is a great news because the previous government made this mistake almost 3 years ago. And the new government have just time till to few days before Christmas, and then there was the official notification following this very strong bipartisan initiative to make it possible that Italy could send a very strong signal to regimes and autocracies that really the status quo is not there. It's possible to change. Thanks again. I would like just to confirm you, and first of all, again, I want to thank again Oleg and Magaletsky and Matteo for the wonderful coordination of the meeting today. I just wanted to confirm you tomorrow morning, we will have a meeting with the delegation of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Chamber of Deputies, not far away from here, at 9:30. We will meet there, of course, with passport and better with ties, but in the Chamber of Deputies it's less mandatory than in the Senate. And really thank you very much for a very, very fruitful, important discussion that we have today. Thank you again.
Thank you.